the Meadows? What about that bridge? It was like it's moving it all.
Yeah,
Every
but
time I go there,
it's PennDOT. It has nothing to do with Lower Saucon.
right.
So.
Good.
Huh.
Me too.
Oh,
And
you don't have
all
a
there is
chance. You
the
need to
barrier on
talk to
both
that
sides and
lady
nothing.
over there.
And the equipment sits there, but I don't see anything happening.
I guess everybody just wants to see Drew.
Hear the presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Slide down a bit.
Yeah, because I go on the rails trail. Yeah, I like that. It's really nice. I haven't got my electric bike out this year. I got to get my electric bike out.
Who's that comedian that did that? I'll remember it.
During vacation?
30 minutes. But somebody went to go to the bathroom, and he's like, okay, all the people in this section get up and swap seats.
Swap sites.
Who was that, the comedian? He did it in a round.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know why she's short one. Do you have
Because everybody's
two
confused when they
sets?
came back.
yeah, and then the
No,
person
there's
comes
a
back and
line.
goes,
Yeah.
Packets or minutes?
I don't know if you've heard that came in. She's from Allentown EAC and wanted to give a little blurb about it. She said she will wait, but if you want to start
I
with
will
her.
be tagging.
And then she can.
I'm gonna give probably a 20-minute presentation, so
I read through it.
It's okay.
we'll call a meeting to order and so forth, and then give you the floor.
Thank you so much.
Okay, hello everyone. Let's see, I get my wits about me there after fooling around with the computer. Okay, so call the meeting to order and start with the roll call. Drew Germanowski, I'm here. Jennifer Helton.
Here.
Laura Ray.
Here.
Tom Carochi. No. Vance Burke. No. Alan Johnson.
Here.
Cheyenne Raymond.
Here.
Kathy McGovern.
Here.
Janine is here. Chad Heimbecker.
Here.
Russ Sutton.
Here.
Winfield Clark.
Here.
And Carol Schneider. And Harry Vitchik. Do you remember not here? Okay, let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, there's no executive session, and before we start with new business and the hydrology presentation, we have a young woman here from the Allentown EAC, and she would like to share some information with us. So rather than subject her to a hydrogeology presentation, please come to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, so my name's Lauren House. I'm from the Allentown EAC, and we're currently working on a project over there of creating some type of interactive platform to utilize for EACs within the Lehigh Valley area. So our main goal is that we really want to encourage more collaboration among different EACs, and things get really hard with emails. We're getting tons of emails a day. And so having a space that's just dedicated to communication within EACs, we think is something that could be really helpful. We think if certain areas are having problems, they could easily reach out and have resources and contacts at their fingertips to say, hey, we're struggling with our wastewater management, we're struggling with keeping green spaces within our city. Does anybody have any, contacts or resources that they could help with this? Another thing is it could aid in kind of mobilizing for bigger, larger scale projects. If it's something that one EAC can't really tackle alone, it can make it a lot easier to have some kind of online space where you can talk to each other, easily mobilize to work together on projects like that. But we're not exactly sure what kind of shape this platform would take. That's kind of why I'm going around to different EACs, because we're hoping to hold a sort of brainstorming session where we can have representatives from a couple of different EACs come together and share what they think would be most helpful, what kind of platform might work the best for this. So that's kind of why I'm here. I'm hoping that some of you might be interested, would want to come out to a brainstorming session. We don't have it on the calendar yet because we wanted to see who could come and what days would work for them. But we're thinking of hosting it at Northampton Community College. So I was hoping if any of you want to leave a contact with me that I could keep you included on this if you would want to attend this meeting. I can also leave you guys with my email if it's something you're interested in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I can take.
Card with it.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Has an email address here. So my name's Drew Drobinowski. I'm the chair of the EAC.
Awesome.
Just as a point of reference, and so we could keep lines of communication
Yeah,
open
thank you
and
so much.
emails legitimate and good.
Awesome. Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming
Yeah,
and for
thank you.
considering us.
Let us know.
Great idea.
Thank
Let
you.
us know how to help.
Yes, I will. I'll definitely be in contact, especially for scheduling.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah,
Very
thank you.
Thank you.
interested.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you guys so
Thanks.
much.
Good, thank you.
Can I just put out a reminder for everybody who's speaking to individually put on your microphone? The one in the middle is on, but when you're speaking, if you could just press it to green and pull it toward you, that makes it easier to transcribe.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
You didn't pull it
I
close.
guess I'll get started. No, I don't, there it is. I wasn't sure where I had left the controller. So you want me to use this microphone here?
You can use that microphone.
Okay.
I have it on already. Is that one?
No, this isn't the right one. We'll make it work.
Is that green?
No, it's red. No, it's green.
I may have carried it over here and buried it. No. That doesn't make sense because we had contact.
Is this the thing here?
Sit in the audience for this.
Is it a little pen-looking thing?
Is this the thing?
There we go.
There we go.
There you go.
Thank you.
Too many controls.
Yeah.
Give me the bad one.
Okay. So for several months, we've talked about we'll be doing a little presentation about groundwater flow in the system. Is this come loose? Yeah, I'll feel more comfortable being able to look at people. So I just want to give you an overview of the groundwater flow systems here in Lower Saucon Township. To give you the conclusion, groundwater flow here is controlled by topography and strongly influenced by geology. And then the fact of the matter is the geology controls the topography. So this is really a geology story. So what I'm going to do is give you some scaffolding to talk a little bit of basic geology. We have different geomaterials, so I'm not going to call them rocks because many of them are rocks, but a lot of the important components of the groundwater hydrology isn't rocks, okay? It's unconsolidated materials. So I'm going to explain the differences and create some terminology that we can work with, and then summarize looking at the recharge, where groundwater gets recharged, where groundwater discharges, and the flow systems that connect the recharge and discharge areas. So when you look at any intro geology book, the groundwater system is always drawn like this as a starting point. It's a horrific oversimplification in most cases because what this cartoon implies is that we have some isotropic homogeneous material, meaning the stuff is the same everywhere. And importantly, we're interested in the ability for a material to transmit or allow water to flow through it. And so the language we use to describe whether or not a material's ability has a good ability to transmit water, we call hydraulic conductivity, just like you think of electric conductivity. And so if it's isotropic, it means water can flow with equal ease in any direction. And if it's homogeneous, it means the hydraulic conductivity is the same everywhere, okay? So it can move in all directions with equal ease, and it can move with the same ease everywhere. This kind of situation exists, but it's basically a scenario where you're dealing with beach sand or something like that, where you have unconsolidated material, meaning not cemented, and the pores are what we call intergranular. The porosity are openings between the grains. This is a useful diagram. It's not a waste of our time. The other thing this shows us that's important is that generally speaking, the water table, which is the boundary, the surface that separates the saturated zone where all the pores are filled with water from the unsaturated zone above it, we call the unsaturated zone or the vadose zone. The water table's the boundary between them. And in a natural situation or system, the water table is going to generally mimic topography to some extent, okay? And it's because of friction, if you're wondering. One of the things I do in hydrogeology, I have these tanks. You just imagine an aquarium that's 4 inches wide, and we have one that's empty. And you put water in, and I have water coming in one end and draining out the other. And there's a hydraulic gradient in there. The water surface is tilted slightly, but you can't see it with your eyes. It's too flat. Then I have a material that's a little bit gravel, that's very porous and permeable and has high hydraulic conductivity, and the water table will build up in that because of friction. And then I have one with sand, which has lower hydraulic conductivity, and the water table builds up even steeper. So the water table, as it were, forms naturally in the system, and it also represents the distribution of energy in the groundwater system. So here's another cartoon that adds to this by pointing out that the water table fluctuates seasonally, it fluctuates with drought, etc. And again, that surface of the water table is an energy surface, and flow is driven ultimately by gravity. And the general energy term we use for fluid energy is hydraulic head. And it consists of two components, a pressure component and an elevation component. So, you know, if I were to take these two waters, this water has higher elevation head than this one, so it has more energy than this one, energy due to position. Now, this water in the tube below has energy due to elevation, but it also has pressure energy because of the water on top of it. So that's how those two things come together to form hydraulic head. Technically speaking, groundwater has a third type of energy. The truth, hydraulic head would be pressure head plus elevation head plus kinematic head, energy due to motion. But, so like if I pitch this water and hit Kathy with it, she'd feel it, right? And that kinematic energy would be important. The groundwater energy, groundwater moves like this. So eventually, by next month's meeting, I'm going to touch her with this. It's imperceptible to her, so we could ignore it. Groundwater, except in caves or something, moves too slow, so we can ignore kinematic head, okay? And so what we have then is a system where usually, you know, the whole aquifer is going to receive recharge from rainfall everywhere, but by and large, we tend to think of the recharge areas being quite important in the higher parts of the landscape because the energy is going to build up there, and that's going to be where the energy is the highest, and it's going to drive the groundwater flow to lower energy places. So water then discharges usually at streams or rivers, maybe flows through lakes or ponds, or if the water table intersects the surface for some geologic reason, you get a spring, okay? So that's a discharge point. So this diagram is busy as heck, but I can make it simple. First of all, these are just expressing hydraulic conductivity and permeability in a variety of different numerical values, centimeters per second, meters per second, etc. But the point I want to make here is that when we look at different geologic materials, the hydraulic conductivity is what we're focusing on here, the ease with which a material can transmit water. It varies by orders of magnitude. So if you take something like karst limestone, limestone with cave networks in it, it can have a hydraulic conductivity, say, of what, that one centimeter per second, or it could have a hydraulic conductivity of 10 to the minus 4. So that's moving a decimal point 4 places. So the range of hydraulic conductivity of any geologic material ranges tremendously. And we generally, ultimately, by arbitrary choice, have chosen a permeability, which are these lower Ks, of 10 to the minus 2 darcies, or a hydraulic conductivity of 10 to the minus 5 centimeters per second as the boundary between aquifers, where these materials to the right of that line are going to be able to transmit water in significant quantities to a well. So aquifers are the name of the game in groundwater flow systems because those are materials that are going to transmit water. On the other hand, you know, say for example, unfractured metamorphic and igneous rocks, they're confined units. They don't transmit water. Important point to make though here is Notice fractured igneous and metamorphic rocks, they can be world-class aquifers, okay? One of my good friends always tells me about his well and tells me he gets his water from an underground river. It's just a good fracture network. That's all it is. So again, this notion of hydraulic conductivity, it's just a measure of the ease with which a material can transmit flow. It's going to be a function of the porosity, how big are the pores, are the pores connected, okay? So these materials here have significant porosity. The pores are large enough to transmit water. The pores are connected to one another. And so if we think about how are geologic materials going to have pores, the one we already sort of considered, which is intergranular porosity, pores between grains. Sedimentary rocks are layered and have what we call bedding plane. You drive down the highway and you see layers of sandstone. Those partings, those bedding planes can transmit water. Any rock, any solid rock can be fractured, and so fracture porosity can be significant. Then if we're dealing with rocks like we call carbonate rocks, limestone and dolomite, they're soluble, relatively speaking. So pre-existing bedding planes and fractures get enlarged. In the best case scenario, you get Mammoth Cave, you get Lost River Cavern. And if you ever go in Lost River Cavern, something to pay attention to, maybe this will give you inspiration to go there. If you look at the passageways in there, you'll notice they're not random. They tend to follow bedding planes and fractures, and the biggest ones are where bedding planes and fractures intersect. And that's true of cave systems everywhere. So let's now look at geologic materials in Lower Saucon Township. What are we talking about? What kind of porosities do we expect and where? So first I'll talk about bedrock, and then we'll talk about unconsolidated material, stuff you can dig with a shovel. So one of the more prominent rock types in this landscape are metamorphic rocks, a rock called gneiss. And gneiss is, the gneisses here are Precambrian in age, or more specifically Proterozoic. These rocks were metamorphosed about 1.1 billion years ago during an old mountain building event called the Grenville Grenville mountain building event. So these are rocks, and if you live on the ridges around here, you're familiar with them. Some of them are greenish, some of them are black and white, some of them are pink. Depends on what the minerals are that make up those rocks. Now importantly, these crystals, if we look at them under a microscope, that's what they look like. They're all intergrown and fused together. So a rock like this has no intergranular porosity of significance. You could choose to have your kitchen countertops made of this kind of rock. Then you don't have to worry, oh, I spilled the milk. Damn, I gotta wash all the silverware because the milk's gonna drain right through the countertop, right? If there's no fracture, those rocks are impermeable. That's why we make countertops out of them. So the name of the game there with respect to porosity in these rocks is fracture porosity. And it's not only a question of is the rock fractured, but this is a classic cartoon example of a situation where your well doesn't happen to intersect well-connected, interconnected fractures versus one where it does. You might have experienced this or have friends that you might talk to. It happens quite frequently in this type of rock where you buy a lot and you're going to put a well in, so you hire a well driller. First thing you do is talk to the neighbors and say, hey, how deep's your well? Because you're paying 10, 15 bucks a foot to drill it, another 15 bucks for casing per foot. And they say, oh, it's 60 feet, and we're in an underground river. And then your well driller comes over and starts drilling 60 feet, 70 feet, 80 feet, and you're like, oh, this guy's a chiseler. He's ripping me off. He's just not hitting the fractures. So the heterogeneity that exists in these fracture systems is very significant. The other thing to keep in mind is, we think back to the cartoon of the groundwater realm. It shows everything blue, everything saturated. But that's not true in rocks where the porosity is fracture porosity. Those rocks in between are as dry as your counters. It's the fractures where the water is going to exist, and the water table will be at the level at which those fractures are filled with water, okay? So the Precambrian age rocks around here, the porosity is fracture porosity. It can be frustrating to deal with hydrogeologically, and it's very tricky to characterize in detail. So if we now look at, this is a LiDAR image, a topographic image, where the Lower Saucon's outlined here in black. The light colors are high topographies and the purples, the yellows, the low topography. So I labeled some of the prominent hills we're familiar with: Kirchberg Hill, Granite Hill, Green Hill, where the landfill is. Church Hill is this little hill. Flint Hill is this large one. Swoveberg, South Mountain, where Lehigh's mountaintop campus is, etc. So where are the metamorphic rocks? All of these purple and whites. They're the high terrain elements around here, and they're all metamorphic rocks. These rocks and these hills extend all the way down through Reading. We call them the Reading Prong. They extend up into New Jersey. The people in New Jersey call them the Highlands. And they recognize in New Jersey the significance of these rocks because these are the recharge areas. This is where the aquifers get recharged, and flow is driven from these high topographies. So they preserve them with a little more intensity in New Jersey because of their importance. So these are, by the way,
You use the word recharge. I don't know what that word means.
Recharge would be like bank deposits for you, right? You recharge your bank account when you put money in.
Right.
So in this case, recharge is water filling the aquifers,
Okay.
recharging the aquifers.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question. And please do ask questions, especially if I'm using a word that is, geo-specific and you're not familiar with it. So that's where these aquifers get their water. And you could guess what the yellow stuff is. These are where the carbonate rocks are. The limestone and dolomite. They get their recharge from these mountaintops as well. So the groundwater systems are all connected in this landscape. Water doesn't flow with equal ease through everything, but they're connected. Now I'll tease that out here. So then the carbonate rocks are limestone and dolomite. The international symbol for carbonate rocks is a brick pattern because they're layered and have bedding planes, and they're always fractured. So this is the Allentown Formation. It's one of the rocks that crops out here in Saucon Valley. This road cut just happens to be in Easton, but you can see the bedding planes. The other thing to realize is when the Appalachian Mountains were originally formed by tectonic collision, these rocks were folded and faulted and deformed. So when you look at road cuts, you rarely see horizontal sedimentary rocks around here. They're usually tilted to varying degrees, sometimes vertical. And they're faulted as well. In fact, that gap right there is a fault that groundwater flow has enhanced by dissolution. And so here's another example of original bedding planes and fractures, and you can see those aren't tight bedding planes, those aren't tight fractures. Water moving through the initial fractures dissolves it slowly but surely and enlarges those porosities. So general rule of thumb, we usually think of carbonate rocks, limestone or dolomite, where the word carbonate comes from the fact that their base chemistry is a carbonate molecule, CaO3. Limestone's mostly pure calcite carbonate, dolomites calcium and magnesium carbonate. So these rocks are basically soluble. In intro geology, students, almost gov law majors, everybody loves one aspect of mineral identification. When it comes to calcite or dolomite, in limestone or dolomite, you put acid on it and it fizzes. And that CO2 is being driven off and bubbles out. And I've been doing this for, 40-some years. I still get a little charge out of dropping some acid on a carbonate rock. So this shows the whole Lehigh Valley, really, but what I wanted to emphasize is the connection, again, between topography and geology. All these dark greens are carbonate rocks. This is the low topography in the landscape. These deeper greens here that you can see with some yellow in them, these are the Reading Prong Precambrian rocks. Interesting point to make here is that we think about, and I'll show you an example of how this all came together in cross-section, but these rocks were deformed by mountain building events, but this is an erosional landscape. These rocks were buried a couple miles deep when the Appalachians were brand new. We've unroofed several tens of thousands of feet of rock material. You go lay on a beach in the East Coast, you're laying on some of these rocks. Another crazy, just sort of an aside, when these mountains were brand new, they were Andean in scale. This continent was drained to the west by a major river system. If you go to Zion and you look at those big sand dunes that are so beautiful, those minerals were derived from the Appalachian and flowed across the continent in a major river system. First, that seems crazy until you think, well, wait a minute, what do we got right now? We have a Mississippi River that begins in Canada and drains across the continent. So it was just a different landscape. And then the drainage reversed when the Atlantic Ocean opened, and then as the rocks continued to wear away, they shed sand out into the continental shelf. Is that all the big pile of sand that makes up the continental shelf was on top of us here, okay? So here is the cross-section. This shows the geology and cross-section where, in fact, all of these ridges, Janine can probably remember, the phrase I always use to describe them, fault-bounded basement blocks. We call igneous and metamorphic rocks the basement. Sedimentary rocks are covered. And every one of these ridges is surrounded by faults. So they're basement blocks that are demarcated by faults. How does that look in cross-section? Here is South Mountain. You can see a thrust fault here over carbonates. This thrust fault here that thrust faulted carbonates on top. All these faults are named, Apple Butter Fault. This is, this ridge here is I'm gonna be careful. I'm not gonna say because I don't wanna be wrong. But I can take another look at another part of South Mountain further down along South Mountain, and then this would be Saucon Hill, and it's fault bounded, and it's Precambrian rock. So all of these ridges are these metamorphic rocks. There's some igneous stuff mixed in there. Some of this stuff melted, but then there's layers of carbonates on top, and the carbonates are fairly intensely deformed and folded. And by the way, these faults are usually good conduits for groundwater flow too, because when those rocks are grinding, literally moving miles on top of one another, they're grinding that rock apart. So those are usually good groundwater flow zones. Okay, so that's the bedrock story. On top of the bedrock is unconsolidated material of various sorts. A non-specific term we use for any unconsolidated material on bedrock is regolith. But there are multiple types of it. So what are we looking at here? This is soil. This is material that formed from the weathering and breakdown of parent material. So you think about your life experience, you rarely walk on rocks, right? You're usually walking on soil. When you lived in Hawaii, you had plenty of opportunity to walk on rock, but when you got to the wet side, the soils are remarkably thick, right? They form from weathering and breakdown. So soil is a product of weathering and breakdown. There's another material, usually at the base of the soil pile, that we call saprolite. What saprolite is rock that's been weathered by chemical processes. It's experienced mass loss, it's weak, and in fact, this rock is gneiss. This is a Precambrian gneiss here in the Lehigh Valley. This is Emery Cleaves, formerly the director of the Maryland Geological Survey and a chemist who studies rock weathering. And I took him here to this spot because there's a nice saprolite, and saprolite's just bedrock that's weathered significantly. You could stick your hammer in it, you could poke it with your fingers, but what's happened is the weaker minerals, the more chemically less resistant minerals will weather quicker than, say, quartz that might be part of the rock. And so if you look at this carefully, you can start to see that there are actually fractures visible in this rock that were original fractures in the rock, yet this stuff is like a pile of sand, really. You know, Kathy, the sand pit up there right by your house, that sand pit was saprolite that they mined. So this is the rock that weathers to this sand. So this unconsolidated material, when you go to these basement blocks here, usually on the top of them, there's saprolite where the rock has weathered away, and this stuff is very porous and permeable. This has intergranular porosity. A lot of people, original hand-dug wells on these hills in Lower Saucon Township were tapping into saturated saprolite. You could dig into it, and as long as you weren't, you know, canning corn or brewing beer, you could feed a household with water supply. So the picture I'm trying to paint here is when you think about these basement blocks, that the rock transitions into soil and saprolites in between. How thick is this stuff? This ranges from maybe a couple feet thick to tens of feet thick. In some places in the Appalachians, this could be 100 feet thick. So it could be a formidable aquifer. So here, saprolite's typically present at the base of the soil, okay? And when it forms from gneiss, it's usually sandy or gravelly. So it can have that intergranular porosity that the first cartoon showed. Another unconsolidated material on bedrock is something that we call colluvium. We have names for everything. Colluvium is just unconsolidated material that's been moving down hill slopes by gravity. And these ridges all have colluvium, which is, again, has intergranular porosity. This is actually, Kathy, right up off of Buttermilk Road, up in the woods there. You notice this is nice, and it's all broken up into boulders. We call this stuff boulder colluvium because it's colluvium that's been moving down slope under the pull of gravity, and it consists of boulders. This stuff mostly weathered, and this rock broke apart when we had ice sheets just north of here. So 18,000 years ago, if you went up to Belvedere, New Jersey, you're at the edge of a glacier, okay, just above Martins Creek, Pennsylvania. What was this here? A tundra. Experienced intense freeze thaw. And that freeze thaw happening day in and day out, daily in summer to winter, broke these rocks up into pieces. So if you go on any of these ridges, you'll notice a lot of them they're forested and not farmed because the soil's bouldery. It's colluvium, actually. This is really important stuff because this facilitates infiltration when it rains. And so water can infiltrate in through the colluvium, into the saprolite, and feed, in essence, shallow aquifers on top of the bedrock. Okay? So you're hopefully starting to see the picture of why these ridges are so damned important. They have the ability for water to infiltrate into the soils and recharge the aquifers, and they can serve as aquifers. And then the final unconsolidated material we'll talk about fits more in the valleys around here, which is material deposited by streams and rivers. We call that alluvium. Thing to keep in mind when you look at East Branch of Saucon Creek, Black River, Saucon Creek, you see it where it is. And if it starts eroding the bank, the property owners go nuts and start thinking something's wrong, someone's done something to knock this stream out of equilibrium, and now it's eroding here. All these valleys are underlain by alluvium because all of these streams over millennia and tens of thousands of years have been sweeping back and forth, eroding on the outside of bends, depositing on the inside, cutting meanders off. And so these valleys have alluvium on top of them. And there again, people with hand-dug wells in the main valleys in Saucon Valley, they were tapping into the alluvial aquifers. Easy to dig into, usually high water table, and you can get water out of it. So that material is usually sandy or gravelly, depending what the river is transporting, and these are shallow aquifers in and of themselves. This one I like a lot because that alluvium has a soil formed in it from weathering of it. You can see the topsoil that's organic rich, what people often call the subsoil, the clay-rich material. Okay, so what we're looking at here to summarize this really all together is these ridge tops consist of fractured rock that can transmit water through the fracture network. They're high topography, so the water is going to be energetic on these ridges. They're going to have on them, to varying degrees, colluvium and saprolite. This doesn't show the unconsolidated material, just the bedrock. These are bedrock maps, but I'll show you a cartoon in a minute that puts the alluvium and colluvium, or not the alluvium, the colluvium on top of it. There's alluvium in the valleys, but this is where the groundwater system gets so much of its original recharge. That's the deposit lane at the bank, okay? And so all these ridges are mantled. So the bright colors here are the high terrain again. We have the drainage network in here in the valleys. All these ridges are mantled by boulder colluvium to varying degrees. That facilitates infiltration and recharge. The water flows through colluvium, it flows through saprolite, and it seeps into the fractures in the bedrock. So you actually have multiple tiers of aquifer. And so to think about springs, for example, all of these ridges, and any of you who live on these ridges or have spent time looking on these ridges, those of you who are the newly constituted EAC, Open Space Subcommittee, we're going to see that every time someone wants us to look at their property or on the flanks of these ridges, there's going to be hydrologic features. And so in the fracture network, it's like a plumbing system. You know, when they want to feed water to your second floor bathroom, they put the reservoir up on a ridge. They put a water tower up, and that pressure will drive the water right up into your second floor. Well, when you think about a fracture network like this, where the water table's up here at high elevation getting recharged, these plumbing systems are gonna sometimes daylight, and you're gonna have springs on the flanks of these hills. It was a major part of water supply around here. So whether they're incline fractures or cross-hatch fractures, the story's the same. There are springs on the flanks of all of these hills. Vernal pools, wetlands. Here's the cartoon I promised a moment ago that shows then the fracture network, the unconsolidated material aquifer, they're connected, but because these things tend to be more porous and permeable, you get significant groundwater flow there, and when either a fracture makes its way up to the surface, that's where you get a spring. This is my road, this is Countryside Lane. Township hates this part of the road because they get potholes here over and over and over again. And the reason they get potholes is under that road is a fracture network, and a fracture's daylighting under there and has enough hydraulic head or pressure to drive that water up through the pavement. No one spilled water here. That water's seeping up through the pavement. It's funny how geologists recognize things. My good friend Frank Pizzalia over here at Lehigh, we have the same expertise background. We do research together, and he comes to our house once in a while. Easter, he brings pierogies and things, and I give him pierogies, and he makes wine, and I get his wine, and I make wine, and he gets his wine, and he bicycles all over, if you know Frank. And we were just chatting about the hydrology, and he said, oh yeah, like those springs down the hill on your road. Right away, as soon as he pulled up there, he saw that water seeping out. This is what he saw in his mind's eye. Okay? So another example of this is from the geohydrology of southeastern Pennsylvania. USGS geologists put this together, and they're showing the basement block hydrology that we see on these ridges with the fractures, driving flow, faults, bringing water up to the surface and forming springs. So we get recharge up in the colluvium. You get a shallow flow system with springs and wetlands and vernal pools. There's shallow flow through the saprolite. Those are both intergranular pores, and then that water is also seeping into that deep fracture network. And think about the carbonates. They're prolific aquifers because they too get recharged from these basement blocks, but they have fracture porosity, bedding porosity, caves and conduits. Alan, you worked at Friedenstown Mine, didn't you?
Yeah.
You know, they were pumping 19 to 20,000 gallons a minute to be able to mine that rock in the 60s. So you talk about a prolific aquifer, a rock body that can transmit a lot of water. That water is coming from up on South Mountain as well as Flint Hill to the south. Lost River Cavern, that's fed by recharge areas in Kirchberg and Squareberg Hills. If you go on the tour, they will tell you no one knows where the Lost River flows. They do. You're damn right they do. Then I tell my students I'm in there, it's coming from these ridges. Right? And then we have the shallow alluvial aquifers in the valleys as well. So that's the summary of the groundwater story. And we're supposed to end with a sunset. So in a week from tomorrow, I'm jumping in a truck, hooking up my boat, driving for 14 hours, and I'm gonna be on that lake for 3.5 weeks. So I won't be here in August, Jennifer, so you gotta run the show.
Okay.
Okay, give another, and maybe you can give a groundwater presentation on the northern part of the Lehigh Valley.
Sure.
And I just realized something here I didn't say, and I thought I had made a point of it. So I'm gonna add one last thing about this recharge and the springs on the flanks of the hills. Just think about this topography. If I go back somewhere like here and think about the places you know, Spring Valley, Springtown, City of Hellertown water supply comes from the recharge areas on these two ridges. So they had, they're using spring flow. And in fact, Frank had a student do some work, Frank Pizzalia that is, where they did thermal measurements and modeled thermal. And one of those springs that feeds the Hellertown water supply is a shallow one. That's saprolite and colluvium. Other one is a deep water spring. That's coming out of the fractures in the bedrock. So when you just think about your life experience here and think about, oh yeah, there's a place down here called Springtown with a lot of springs, and Cooks Creek, and then there's Spring Valley, and there's springs there. And then any of these ridges that you have familiarity with, you probably know of vernal pools, wetlands, and springs, and they're basically coming out of that shallow system or being fed by places where the bedrock might be close to the surface and the water's being driven up by hydraulic head that gets its energy on the top of the ridge and seeps out the periphery. And there's no accident that, same thing, where all these streams, you don't see them dry up. It goes weeks and weeks without rain perhaps. They don't dry up because that groundwater is just a constant supply feeding them continuously. Okay, I better get us back to the sunset. Okay, so that's the overview of the groundwater flow systems around here. I'd be happy to entertain any questions if anyone has them. Otherwise, we can move on with our agenda.
Where does the water in Lost Cave go?
Where does it go? It drains back into.
I mean, all that, they have like a river in there, right?
Yeah, and it flows through the fractures and will daylight at the surface in Silver Creek probably.
So eventually it gets absorbed by the fractures.
Yeah.
And becomes.
Did you ever hear the rubber duck story in
No.
They put 100, 200, I don't know, little rubber ducks
Okay.
in Lost River Caverns, and nobody knows
Where they showed up, probably never.
They all got stuck in
No one
little
ever found it.
crevices.
Yeah, they're blocking the
So,
Now it's
and
just
again,
microplastics for everybody in our groundwater. Let's just dump microplastic feeds in our
This disappearing
groundwater.
stream,
So
Bull Run flows in your property.
You're right.
And it disappears downstream and then it reappears.
Right.
Last couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I was fly fishing in the Popo-G River in the Wind River Mountains in Wyoming. And the Popo-G River is flowing down out of the Wind River Mountains and disappears right into a cave. For a quarter of a mile, you have a boulder bed channel, bone dry, and then quarter mile down the river, the water reappears into a big pool. And so that's pretty common in carbonate terrains where streams, we call them losing streams when the water flows into the subsurface, and gaining streams when they're gaining from groundwater.
That happens on your parents' farm.
That's what he's talking about,
Oh, is that
Bull
what he's
Run.
talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for that presentation.
Yeah,
thank you.
fascinating.
yeah, I hope it made some sense. And,
It's great.
You don't have to take
Yeah.
a test.
and yeah, it's your farm
Yeah.
now.
10
I know.
questions,
Yes,
multiple
it
choice.
It's a ranch now, it's the McGovern Mitchell, you see they got cattle there, it's
So
a
you got a
ranch.
sign up? and everything?
Yeah, we're getting there.
It's official.
She's teasing me about wearing a bolo tie the one day, I was like, I live here now on, near the Yellowstone Ranch, I gotta up my game, and wear a bolo tie so I can fit in the neighborhood.
And a cowboy hat.
Yeah, get a cowboy hat. That ain't happening.
With a peacock feather in the
Yeah.
side.
I got tons of those.
Oh, that's right, you sure do.
I did.
Okay, well, so that was that, hopefully it was fun.
I just have
Yes.
one question.
Yeah,
When people put in septic systems and they do perk tests, the perk test is basically based on the type of substances that they're drilling into, how fast it dissipates into the ground.
yeah, they do two things actually. Perk tests tell you what's happening on that day. So if it's dry, if it's been dry, you might get decent percolation. But sometimes that belies what the long-term scenario is. The other issue can be that during the wet period of time when the water table comes up, you could have seasonally high water table and the water table's right there. So your septic effluent's gonna get right into the groundwater. What we rely on with septic system is natural biogeochemical oxidation processes to break down the organic molecules, to break other things down, to filter material out, literally, organic molecules. So this is the whole reason for sand mounds. The two things they do is do the percolation test. The other thing they do is they'll dig a backhoe trench about 6 feet deep. And what geologists look for is what we call models in the soil. If you have nice yellow, reddish soil, that's telling you that oxidizing conditions prevail over the long term. So any iron that's present gets oxidized. Oxidized iron is relatively insoluble, right? You can't wash rust off your car. You gotta use acid or something. Iron, that's ferric iron, it's oxidized iron. Ferrous iron, which is reduced, so Fe2 plus instead of Fe3 plus, is reasonably soluble. So when you have a seasonally high water table, usually the oxygen is depleted in that water somewhat, and it can reduce the iron and make it Fe2+, which is soluble. So what a geologist will do is look at that profile of the soil. If it's all orange and yellow down for 4 to 6 feet, you're good to go with a regular in-ground septic system. If you see mottles, which are gray patches mixed in with the red, what those gray patches are the color of natural clay. When you see red clay, it's just a paint job. It's like a wooden house. You don't think of it as made of blue paint, you think of it as just a paint job on the wood. Well, with mottles, if reducing conditions occur because of high seasonal water table, then some of the iron will get reduced and it'll get leached out of the soil. And it leaves that like polka dot pattern of gray and red. If it's solid gray, you've got saturation for long periods of time. So you might have a good percolation in a dry period of time, but if someone sees mottles, that's telling you it's either poorly drained and water hangs up there, or the water table comes up and persists there for a time. So those are the two sort of tests.
That's why I was curious, because like my property perked and the neighbors didn't.
Yeah.
And, it's not that far away from each other, so I was wondering what makes that happen. It's the consistency of the soil.
Yeah, which can vary for any number of reasons. If you're in a lowland landscape, it could be because it's alluvium, and some of it's more clay rich than others, some's more sandy. So there can be subtle variations. When you think about a stream sweeping back and forth, at the bed, it's gonna put the coarse material, the sand and the gravel. And then the finer grain material on top, the clay, which probably has lower permeability. If it's really pure clay, it might have really low permeability and stay saturated. And then it also won't perk well. Yeah.
Thank you.
The variability is amazing sometimes, and again, most of us, our natural inclination is, oh, that person's gypping me here,
Yeah.
Mine doesn't perk and yours did, and yeah, I have a sand mound that you could, I think if anything goes wrong at Cape Canaveral, they're gonna start launching rockets out of my sand mound. Mine's horrifically overbuilt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So when I have haul firewood in the winter and I have to use my mini bucket, I say, well, I put a lot of money in this thing that I hate. I ride that sand mound a few times in the snow to get my money's worth. My whole family will be out there Labor Day.
Listen, I do
And
too
that
on
is
ours. I can
Nephews
slide
and
down.
nieces, and we put
Slip and slide.
big sheets of plastic and tarps
Plastic and
there,
slide down.
and run water and soap it up, and all these kids just, it's like, I gotta do something to keep myself from letting the back up and tearing it out. Okay, but I digress.
Okay,
So
That
let's
was
get.
fascinating, thank you.
yeah,
Okay,
Thank you.
good, I'm glad it
yes,
was,
thank you.
hope it was, worth our time. Gave me a little fix, I'm on sabbatical in the fall, I won't be teaching till January. But that'll be in New Zealand.
You
Ooh,
dog.
yeah.
Again.
Hawaii in even years,
You
New
were
Zealand
just in
in odd
Wyoming.
years. Well, that was with my son and looking at some glacial moraines.
So,
Gotta get around.
I need to be a geologist.
All right, you should. Get rid of those cows, get some rock handles. Okay, where are we? Open Space Subcommittee. So we're not going to be able to make any decisions today, but I was putting packets together for each of us. We're scheduled tomorrow to look at a property. That'll serve as sort of a training for people who haven't done it. So what I'll give you before we leave is I have the application, which we never speak of the people by name at the meetings. We do it numerically. So I have their application. I have, what else did I put here? The new scoring sheet that Carol shared with us recently. I have a bit of summaries on one of the categories are soils classified as prime farmland soil. So I did that this afternoon and told you what's there. It's a carbonate geology site. It's licefill formation, no steep slopes, probably no bedrock outcrops. I'll be astonished if there is one. I wrote no because I just know from the topography aren't going to be. So those are the background materials, and then we can go out tomorrow, meet with the property owners. Our biggest goal was kind of looking for hydrologic features, talking to them about agricultural activity. Looks like there's some orchard on part of it, so we'll do that tomorrow. We have one other site that I'll have to reach out to that group. I'll schedule that for probably mid to late August. And then we have one that's Carol, that application, there was someone who expressed an interest. The name was shared with me, but as far as I know, they still haven't submitted an application. Do you know?
What number are you talking about? 2024?
It would be 2024 one, I think, if we're calling these other ones 2023. Because, and by the way, just to bring us up to date, we had the Open Space Committee usurped from the EAC. I don't know if they actually ever formed an EAC or an Open Space Committee, and therefore a couple of applications came in the fall. Those are the two we have, and that's the one we're acting on tomorrow to begin with. And then we'll try to get the other people scheduled in August, and then we'll have to see. I'll email you just to remind you perhaps to ask Kathy to have someone reach out to them to say, here's how to apply. Because we can't do anything until we get an application, and I'm not gonna go soliciting things from people. So that's where we stand with open space. I just wanted to bring everyone up to date. And then at the next meeting, it'll be on the agenda, I'm sure, whatever we recommend based on our visit tomorrow. And then usually the way it works is the case is made before the whole EAC, and then we score it. Just again, to be clear, there's no magic number. Like there's 23 possible points. It doesn't have to be 18, it doesn't have to be 16. Oftentimes we've had places score low because they don't have bedrock, they don't have steep slopes, but they have a lot of hydrologic features. They have carbonate geology. So they do score reasonably well in multiple categories, including scenic value and so forth. So we have recommended to council when places may have scored half of the total possible if the committee felt that there were some really good environmental amenities to the property. Adjacent, this one is close to it's a stone's throw away from one of our open space committees. And Bechtel's Orchard, I think, is preserved by the county. And so that would serve as an open space connectivity for us too. So we'll chat about that tomorrow and see how it all shakes out. And then you can all discuss whether to recommend it to council based on what we've learned tomorrow. The next item is We Can Serve PA EAC Fall Gathering, Saturday, October 5th. Jennifer, if you want to comment, or
Yeah, we've done this
there's the
before,
information
and
in the packet.
Yeah, and it's a Saturday from 8 to 5 over there at Temple University, but it's very beneficial. You learn a lot. You go into subgroups. I know, Laura, you've been to a couple, but.
Is there a deadline when people should express an interest that's helpful?
Carol normally gets that information, right?
The only thing I could pull up was what I put in there.
Okay. I'll get more information, but usually you have ample time, and then we get a group and we can go, and the township's normally paid
You have to put a motion through
for it.
the council, move it to council to see if they would pay for your.
Don't we have our own education?
I'm sorry, what, I didn't catch what you said.
I'll talk on this. Yeah, so, yeah, we do have a budget, but you do have to put in to get approved to cover it. So when it gets closer, they'll actually have the cost. It's usually pretty low, like $40 or something per person. Yeah. And yeah, so maybe around, beginning of September, we'd have more information and can decide who wants to go. And yeah, there's a lot of training, different things. They talk a lot of the townships nearby, even from the Philly area, like there was one on Mead had developed composting, the whole town of Media, excuse me.
Talk into the microphone.
Does composting. And it's required, and they talked about how the program was established, how they pick up curbside, so it's very interesting. You get a really good feeling, so I'll get more information.
And I guess, Carol, just to sort of keep it in your mind, that sometime in, say, maybe September meeting, we should put it on the agenda again. For us, if we're gonna vote on it, we have to have it on this item on the agenda. So I say August or September probably is sensible.
Well, this is October
Or
5th,
fifth.
right?
Yeah, but you gotta get it approved, so,
So,
They pay for it.
August,
Yeah.
hopefully by August, they have everything announced here. with the
Yeah.
cost.
I can barely hear you up here.
Do you think by the August meeting, they will have the cost released?
yes, I think so.
I have something to say about We Can Serve, if you can turn the mic around.
Alan,
Okay,
I can hear.
I think Jennifer sent a newsletter around in the email from We Can Serve, I guess their newsletter,
Yeah.
monthly newsletter or something. And at the top of the newsletter, they mentioned a computer program called, let's see here, Model My Watershed. They gave a presentation on the computer program, about an hour long, told you all about it, showed you how to use it and this and that. And it's a really amazing computer program. It will allow us to model our watersheds. I was especially thinking about trying to learn how to use it to model the watershed around here and how it feeds Springtown. So, did you ever hear of Stroud Water Research Center?
Yeah, we're involved with them. We have a gauge on the Bushkill Creek through Stroud Water.
Okay. Have you heard of this program, Model My Watershed?
Yeah, there's another one too. I use Model My Watershed and Stream Stats, which is a USGS one. They're both pretty good and do slightly different things. They do a lot of the same thing. They'll delineate your watershed. It'll pop, you just choose a point on the stream. You have to scale in. A little trick to it, you have got to scale in below, I think, a scale factor of 14 or something like that. It tells you that, or it won't let you put a marker, drop a pin. And you just drop a pin, like, you could do it at the mouth of a stream, you could do it anywhere within a drainage network.
Yeah, they said that the minimum
Delineate,
the minimum area that the program is designed to be accurate in was within 100 acres. Should have 100 acres or more. So we could easily do that.
Yeah. And it is pretty user-friendly. It's like anything. There's always some little glitch that you can, have to deal with, but it's.
There's many layers and, it goes into amazing detail.
Great.
So anybody that's interested in that, I have the URL here.
Yeah. If you just Google Model My Watershed, it'll come up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's all, you don't have to put an app or anything on your computer. You're just using it through the internet. So you don't have to.
Yeah, you can use it right through and I think you can also download it to your computer if you want to.
Yeah.
Do you know, what's his name? I don't have it on here.
David Bressler?
The PhD guy from Stroud Water
Well, there's
Research.
one guy named David Bressler that's usually an outreach person there.
Well, this guy is the guy that gave the presentation. I guess he's a regular scientist like you. I thought you might know him. You probably do know him if you see his name. I don't have
It's fun to fool around with. Anybody, if you're ever bored some night, it is fun to fool around with your local stream and get some information and so forth.
I think it's David Arscott. You know him? David Arscott? Arscott. Anyway, he and a woman from Carol Armstrong, who's a master watershed steward from the Saucon Township EAC. I didn't know they had master watershed stewards. Does anybody else know about that? I know they have master gardeners and master stream thing, but master watershed, I didn't know that. Probably Pennsylvania, state thing. So I wanted to mention that, anybody's interested. Like he said, you can Google Model My Watershed and it'll all come up. Or you can Google We Conserve PA, because they're the ones that did the presentation.
I'm on there, I didn't open it today, but yeah.
Yeah.
They send me updates as well. This October 5th, in general, this October 5th gathering. That young lady that was just here about networking, is this like, what you learn here, is that something that you could network to other EACs in Lehigh Valley? Like the topics that you learn on here, would that be a nice segue to work with the other EACs in the Lehigh Valley?
Potentially, we could actually bring that up as a topic.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I know Chad and I are still excited about the last EAC network thing with the lights.
Online one.
Yeah.
This is the same
I
group?
mean, it's different but the same, right? Like
Yeah,
topics.
it's the same. It
Are
used
they
to
gonna
be
do
the
an
PA
online?
EAC network.
This is only in person option?
Yes.
Okay.
It's so much better, really.
Yeah, I would
honestly.
imagine. You network more.
I've been to many in-person ones. Yeah, you get to
Meet
actually,
people
talk with people and hear what they're doing in their areas, and it's really inspiring. Yeah. And, you come up with, like she suggested, if you come up with an idea, but you're maybe not quite sure how to do it, but maybe somebody else did that already, so go
Right.
steal from them what you can, ideas on implementing things.
The next item on our agenda
Next
is
item.
a plastic bag ban discussion. Laura, did you say that Hellertown is discussing that? And so this was an agenda item that,
Yeah, Hellertown is looking into it. I didn't get to reach out to the contact I wanted to find out how far they got, if they had it on their agenda yet, but, it would definitely make sense if they're gonna wanna move forward on it, we could do it together because how our businesses are so intermingled. And I know the ladies that are here, one had emailed me, interest on this topic, so I said we were gonna talk about it. So a couple years ago, we actually had this on our agenda and we were kind of gathering information, and then we kind of got knocked down because the state had a statewide ban on plastic bag bans, even though at the same time Philadelphia was moving forward and they implemented theirs while the ban was on. So I was like, who cares about the statewide ban? But the statewide ban is gone now. And there's a lot of areas, especially in Bucks County, that have gone through and put these in. So there's a lot of information that we could get from other areas to see the process they went through, to get public on board with it, to get businesses on board with it. And then there's so many different options that you can come up with for what you do about bags. Some of them have a set fee that people have to pay for a paper bag if they don't bring their own, and then either the business gets it or it's a donation or whatever. There's a lot of different moving parts to how you do this. We could also tie it in with, others are now moving forward with, they've done the bag ban, now they're doing the straws and the styrofoam containers and other things. So we could, try to see how we'd want to work on this. I think it's a good thing to do.
One of you ladies, do you have a website about the bags, the plastic bags? Yes. I thought so.
Do you want to go up to the microphone?
I think you and I talked somewhere along the line.
Yeah. I sent out the emails and I added that site. And I'm very interested. I would like to know what I can do to help out to ban this plastic bag. I went to Giant and I talked to the manager. I said, how can I help? She said that they can't do anything. Township should tell them to do it. So they can't decide on their own. So that's why I contacted you to see how this works and how we can all help. To me, it's very unhealthy, very
We agree.
wasteful, and I know Wegman has already done it, and it's a couple of years that they have no plastic bag offer to customers. And so I was wondering why we don't have it. Because when I see all these bags at the checkouts, where do all these bags would go? Okay, they end up in landfill, in our water,
Right.
and gradually in our body, and we're going to breathe it. And so it's, yeah, I'm very interested for this to happen, and I'm willing to help if there's any way to
Thank
help.
you very much. We appreciate that.
And your name in the microphone?
Faraday Karamati.
There is a website for Pennsylvania about how to get rid of plastic bags, and it's like a step-by-step, you know, how they give you a letter of how you write this letter to, like, the township, and then your local representative, and all this kind of stuff. So I thought they were tied together, because each township or municipality has to do their own. But it gives you like a step-by-step guidance on how to do it, which is helpful.
One thing that might be useful for us if we're trying to get public support is to recognize the fact that, as someone mentioned, Wegmans, Fresh Market too, and a lot of these stores have taken upon themselves to ban them, and you just have to bring your own bag with you, or accept a paper bag. And I mentioned Canada, Ontario has a ban, and everybody just deals with it, you know. My wife and I carry bags in our vehicles and try to do it regardless. So it's not that onerous of a thing. And if stores are starting to do it, I think people are starting to realize they can go to those stores and come out of there with all the groceries they need, and it's not some impossible thing. But I think if we can build up that knowledge base, then I think it's something we should pursue. And you're right, Laura, we did talk about this several years ago, and it was the state that thwarted us at that juncture. So I recommend we continue this conversation. By the way, I just checked my calendar, because I'm nervous about, again, this every month, Carol's emailing, hey, who's going to be here? So we won't be a person short. It turns out I come back that weekend before our next meeting. That next meeting is the 13th. So, because right away I'm thinking, if I don't make it, I'm one less person and we may not have a quorum. So we should be good. Hopefully we can take it upon ourselves to be here so we can, you know, this isn't the old EAC sitting around looking for something to do. You guys are all very active and aggressive at bringing things forward and having business for us to attend to. So we really can't afford to miss a meeting here and a meeting there anymore.
So, Laura, I'm sorry, excuse me. Hellertown, how in Hellertown? Like, is there a contact person? Do you know?
Yeah, somebody on their council was interested in moving forward with it, so I want to talk to them and see where they are with getting it on their agenda. Maybe they already did have it on their agenda, and see, you know, if they want to try to coordinate with us, because like I said, it'd be the same. If you want to do some public, like I said, get the public on board with it, get your businesses on board with it, and I know there's a transition period because places have, you know, 50,000 bags to get rid of, so you know, it usually takes a year or whatever to phase it in so that they can, you know, not have to just throw the bags in the garbage that they paid for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not like you pass the ordinance in a week and the next week you're going. So it's a process.
Yeah. Even the quality of the plastic bags, like at Lowe's.
Oh yeah, they're not even worth this.
I said, don't even bother. Don't
Right.
get into it.
So is this something that you want to pursue, Laura, to bring to our next meeting?
I can
Or does
try.
someone else want to do it and just?
I'll reach out to the Hellertown and see what they have to say, but definitely if somebody else, I know I had all kinds of articles, I cut out stuff all the time from Bucks County Herald has lots of articles of what they're doing down in Bucks County.
Can we communicate other than, because we don't have a Facebook page, right? We're not allowed to have a Facebook page, is that
We're not
correct?
doing
So can we communicate in like, the Saucon Source? You know, something like that, like to the community of,
Yeah,
who
when
else is
we
interested
know
and-
what we're doing, sure.
you know, and see getting feedback?
I'd be willing to go to the council meeting at Ellertown and bring the matter up.
Put the microphone in front of you.
Well,
Well, I'll find out first what they're
Okay.
doing, rather than just
okay.
go there.
I think this is a common sense thing for us to want to do, you know, the environmental benefits behind this. But you have to have a coalition of people behind this, the retailers, the businesses, and that sizable group of the population right now that feels deeply offended in trying to do anything nice for anybody else, where they don't want to have to be told what kind of bag. You know, they think it's a conspiracy to get us to use not use plastic straws or get vaccinated or anything like that. So, you know, there's
right.
an education campaign, and I think would have to go on here to talk about the benefits and to highlight that, because there is some costs associated with the businesses in the area, and to have both the borough and the township on the same page together, united on this, I think, for our community would be beneficial.
And if we can get some citizen involvement, that would be wonderful. Good.
Very nice.
But it's not just the plastic bags. They do have a recycling box out front at the Giant, and I've used that quite a bit. I fill up a bag at home with all of my bags and outer wrappings of everything. I take it over there. So just even in the interim period.
Surprised on how they use and what they do with recycling as plastic.
Okay.
It's changed over the years.
Well, you know, some education as far as
Some
trying
of
to.
it doesn't make it to recycling,
I
or a
understand.
lot of it.
And the recycling programs, we understand, are its own Pandora's box of issues that we would love to make better, but are not necessarily there through technology or cost or limitations on how we approach things. So.
I think the biggest thing is to convince people that this is manageable. You know, it's really not an onerous thing to deal with. Most people think, oh, then how, you know, I have all these groceries, and I find myself that we've all done. It's like when we were masking. You're halfway to the building, like, oh, my mask is hanging on the dashboard, or oh, my bags are back in the car, you know. But it's manageable.
You'll get used to
Well,
it.
getting like, or the retailer, like, you know, Giant as being the largest, or if not the only grocery store in the area, right? They're probably one of the largest consumers of these plastic bags. And so to have them, what's their corporate mission statement on this? What's their, like you're talking about that they said that they weren't able to do anything. Well, I'm sure they could do it. They just don't want to unless they're mandated, you know, because it's a cost, it's a burden. So, you know, there's other, I've been to pet stores and they charge you 10 cents for a bag now, some of them. You know, I've been to Aldi's and they don't have any plastic bags. You have to buy some of their reusable ones. So there's solutions out there.
I don't think it's such a stretch though to do it. I mean, when I was living in Hawaii, they already made that transition across the islands. There were no plastic bags. You just got used to it and you actually realize you can, like, I can't understand why people use plastic bags, because you can have 2 or 3 reusable bags instead of 20 plastic bags. Like, everything fits better in those, and you can buy really nice, pretty ones. I usually give them as gifts too.
Insulated ones for my cold goods or frozen meats or things like that I'm taking home, you know? Like, so there's benefits to it but I think if you educate out about what the advantages are, then it feels less like an attack, you know, on my way of life, so to speak.
Yeah, well, let's pursue this then. The next item is the EAC appointment of the Climate Action Plan representative. I noticed that there were some questions that came up about this. Victoria tried to address some of it. Basically, we only have a little bit of information.
Right.
I don't know if anybody knows more, but.
No, I asked, she did not get any more information other than here's this brief description. There's also a second board that I need to mention, they're also doing an Act 167 stormwater group that would do the same thing. They'd meet through the year and come up with some sort of plan or ideas. It's an overall for the Lehigh Valley in general, but they're looking for representation from interested parties from anywhere in the Lehigh Valley. So logically, it made sense to talk about it here at our meeting.
Thank you.
And see if anybody's interested in serving in either one of these areas on this board with the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission.
Yeah, I would be interested in serving.
The expectation is one meeting a month, it looks like.
One meeting a month, and I don't think they're gonna decide when that's gonna be until they know who they have, and then they can figure out when
Well, let me tell you what I
works.
learned so far, right? The Lehigh Valley Lehigh Valley Planning Commission.
Hold on one second.
The Lehigh Valley Planning Commission has been working on a plan to reduce global warming, to do things here in the Lehigh Valley, Northampton County and Lehigh County to reduce global warming. They had what they called phase one, which was a transportation project, which I didn't get a chance to read about yet. But there's happens to be like two big organizations here. There's a Lehigh Valley Planning Commission and there's a Lehigh Valley Transportation Commission. They both kind of work, they're separate, but they have similar goals, like in a lot of different things. And one of them is a climate change, climate action plan. So the phase two is, well, they did, if you go up on the website, you can read several reports that they've already done on climate action, on their climate action plan. But now they're going to get into what they call phase two, and that's what's going to be happening. They haven't, first of all, let me say that a lot of the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission meetings are done online. But the work, what they call the work periods, or they don't call them workstations, I don't know why I have that in my mind, but work group meeting, that's what they call it, work groups. They want people to get together. So those are the one a month that they're talking about. So they're gonna have that at their new offices up there along the Lehigh River in Allentown. I think it used to be called Front Street. And everybody in the Lehigh Valley that's interested in participating, you know, physically in the discussion can go to these meetings. So that's the one, but they haven't, I called a guy up the other day, they haven't decided when those meetings are gonna be yet, but they're gonna be soon, like sometime in August, I think. And then they're gonna have one every month. So I'm interested in this because I'm a mechanical engineer, and during my work experience, I worked in power plants, I worked in a steel company, I worked in cement business, cement-oriented business, and all of those businesses use a lot of fossil fuels. And fossil fuels are what they're trying to cut the use down of, because fossil fuels are what cause global warming and climate change. So, you know, I think that's kind of like right in my area of knowledge. And it's been something that I've been reading about online for quite a while, a couple of years now. So I think I know a thing or two about it. And I'd like to be the EAC representative when I go there.
I'll make a motion to recommend to council that we appoint you as the representative for the climate action plan. I don't know if there's a I don't know if there's a limit or a second person. You want to?
Yeah, so all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, as always, I should have said this before because it could have influenced the vote, you know? But the thing is, you know, we want to make sure we're always stepping forward for the things that we're passionate about. And that we're going to participate in, and so you certainly convinced me.
Yeah. Well, anybody can go to these meetings, but I'll be there, and I'm gonna go to every one.
You'll be our official rep.
So just to be clear, what I heard you say was there's an online meeting and then there's an in-person meeting. So it's 2 meetings a month?
No, what it is that the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission is a huge organization. They have like many different branches, and they have their what they call their, I can't remember all the different meetings, but the branch that is doing the climate action plan thing is their environmental branch.
Okay.
And they have their transportation branch, and they got a bunch of other ones. And all of these branches have, I imagine, work group meetings like the one I want to go to. And then the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission group does their work because they're, and then they give their results to the commissioners of the different levels of the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. And these are the meetings that they have online, when they have the business, what they call the business meetings, I guess. And that's where they usually, what happens is that the work is done in these work sessions, and then the results are written up and given to the commissioners, and then they're read during these public meetings online. So you get like the executive view. They have I don't know if you've read the letters that we get from the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. Whenever we have a development, they write a letter. They wrote one about the garbage dump, and that's what they do. They don't have any authority to make anybody do anything. They just
Make recommendations.
yeah, they make plans, and then they recommend that the municipalities in the 2 counties follow their plans. And then it all takes money to do, so most of the money comes from the government, one way or another. And so there's a big thing there. Somebody has to raise the money, and then the township or the municipalities go ahead and do something. Now, one of the things I learned is that Easton, Bethlehem, and Allentown have already done their climate change plan. I didn't get to read them yet, but I'm going to. And according to some of the reports that I've already read, it appears that they feel, they believe, or they've learned that the biggest concentration of the use of fossil fuels is in the cities, because that's where most people live, right? Most houses, most people, most transportation. So the center of the recommendations are going to be for the higher populated areas, like those big cities. That's why they've already done their thing. And so we'll see how it goes. They're just getting started, the second phase. But like I said, there's a bunch of reports out there. I've read most of them, but I'm going to read the ones for Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton. They did have, in one of their reports that they did a survey, I don't know if to call a survey, a research to come up with what like divisions of society in the different communities what the heck am I going to say? Anyway, I forget exactly what I wanted to say, but they came up with I know what I wanted to say. They come up with a greenhouse gas analysis. And one of the interesting things is that there's about 18 landfills in Lehigh County and Bethlehem. I mean, Lehigh and Northampton County. 18, yeah. And they said that they sent out a survey to ask these landfills how much landfill gas that they, dump in the atmosphere. And only 3 came back. So they had to estimate based on some data that the state has already.
And those three probably said none.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, they come up to like, I think it's like 400 and some thousand, what they call CO2 CO2, yeah, it's a method that they use to measure greenhouse gases and kind of make them all equal. Evil. So the total landfill thing came out to about 450,000, something like that. And the big ones are in the millions. So you can see that it's small, relatively small, compared to all the other things that cause greenhouse gases. But it's in
Great.
there.
Then we can get monthly updates.
Yeah.
Yep,
As
that'd be wonderful.
soon as I start going to the meetings, I'll
Yeah.
come in here and tell you what I
can
learned.
offer to be involved too. With
Is
that.
anybody interested in the stormwater group, which would be probably a separate, group of people, different
Well, that
time?
I think is,
Did you hear Chad? I don't think you heard Chad.
Well, my background's in transportation, roadway safety, and I've been involved at the LVPC. We used to have our monthly meetings there with the Greater Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce, the Transportation Committee that I was on there. It's been a few years since I've been involved because I got sidetracked with personal issues, but getting back involved here, so I'm available.
Yeah,
That would be
I don't
wonderful.
think there's any reason
know,
why
if-
you can't participate.
I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but
Yeah, that
Alan,
would be great.
Yeah,
if there's a
voice
meeting,
is the best.
if you can't make a meeting or something like that, or at least have two of us just in case.
well, we can both go.
Sure.
Because anybody can go. It's not just,
Yeah, I don't think
It's
there's
just
a
that,
limit or,
we can go there and we can
Yeah.
say that we're from the Lehigh,
So,
The Laura Saucon.
but I'd like to get back involved with them a little
Yeah.
bit. And so you're saying their office moved now to Allentown, to Front Street?
yeah,
They used to be over by the airport.
they just made a new
So-
office. It was a big to-do
Okay.
about
615 Waterfront Drive.
moving out
Okay.
of Northampton
Yes, I would
County.
encourage any of our
Please.
EAC members who want to participate,
Yeah.
to participate.
Yeah, I would like to participate because of my background in health and pollution. I really would like to be involved with that, especially concerning the landfills.
No, please, I would encourage people to participate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we want to
have some
amend our
updates
motion? Because I have to take it to council for whatever reason, but
But we had the motion to make Alan the official member.
the
and I think we
official,
need to
and we'll
simply
just
point
have
out that we have other
everybody
members
else
who would like to participate.
okay.
Yeah,
So
just
I
as
think
long
we're
as
just
we
reporting it to
stay up
council.
to date on when the meetings are, if we could be notified of them so that
Yes.
we can attend. That's all.
Yeah, once you get on the LVPC's email list, you'll be on it forever.
Oh, I still get their stuff.
Okay, good.
I have a question,
Yes.
or a comment rather. I almost feel like we're sitting here like a bunch of hypocrites to some capacity. We're talking about like banning plastic bags, right? Fine. But we're sitting here with plastic water bottles in front of us.
That's just as bad.
We have 26 pages, each of us.
Yeah,
Have
that,
26 pages, that's 260 pages between the 10 of us that are sitting here. It's half a room of paper,
Right.
every meeting.
So your
what-
So, start with what we can control, like now.
What
So
we
instead
can
of
do
this,
then
why don't we
is-
say to Carol, hey, can you print me this for the meeting? Like, I'll be honest with you, I don't need this, because I can pull this open on a tablet, laptop, whatever, and look at it.
Or you could print
So
it there.
it's like we're shooting for the stars, but we're missing the simple things. You know, it's like we're tripping over dollars to pick up pennies. When we're sitting here and I'm looking around the table, and I'm like, wait a minute. We're going after all this stuff and these things, and it's not that that shouldn't, whatever, but there's things we could be doing now. So instead of like giving out plastic water bottles at all the meetings, why doesn't somebody bring up about putting a water cooler in the hallway that connects right to a water line?
That comes in, yeah.
What?
I said there is one out there.
There is one.
But you meant that connects into the.
They tie right into the, you know what I mean, and encourage people to bring their own cups. Usually I have one with me. I left it in the truck.
Yeah.
But it's like,
the minutes and stuff, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you.
I mean, I personally, I don't need them printed. It's helpful, but
But the solution's simple. We can just ask Carol to continue to send us the e-versions, which we get. And then if any of us prefer a printed copy, we can request it. Or if we want to print some, once we have the e-file.
Yeah, then
we can
if you
print
want
any
it,
element of it that we.
yes.
Of your own.
Yes, if somebody wants to, but for me, you know what I mean, like I'm trying to move everything more digital, just, I mean, and I'm not a, you know, I just feel bad about all this paper that at the end of the day, you know, it's single-sided, it's great, I can go home and give it to my kids to scribble on, they love it. But when it's on both sides, it's kind of like, all right, what do I do with this now? But I'm sitting here and it's kind of like chapping my ass that I feel like a hypocrite.
Yeah,
to some
no,
capacity. You know, it's not sitting right.
I found myself today, I printed them out at home because I wanted to go through those minutes, which we had to go through, and it was
Yeah.
just easier for me to mark them up.
Sure.
But that's what we'll request. Just send us the e-versions. Anybody wants a paper version, you can print what you want, or if you know.
Yeah, or if you reply, when you say, I'll be at the meeting, you know, can you print me a copy?
I don't
personally.
print copies until I know how many people are coming, which is why it's important for me to know how many people are coming.
Yeah.
I don't wanna waste paper.
You're too good at your job.
And I'm one of the bad people that always, it's not until you say, we don't have a quorum, that I finally say, oh yeah, I'll be there.
Now, this wasn't in the digital packet.
Yeah.
Some of these things are not in the digital agenda,
Yeah, we'll have to.
so can we keep those
Yeah, so
as,
if you could just try to do that, Carol, too, that is, when, like, for example, some of these documents weren't in the e-version. So just try to be more complete with that.
I don't have a problem with that, but when I have your initials after each subject, if you don't get me anything, I try to search. So it's hard for me to know what you want to put in here. Like, you know, Jennifer wanted, you know, that we conserve, and she didn't give me anything to put in, so I searched. You know what I mean?
That's
So,
because I had sent the newsletter in an email, so.
but the newsletter had many articles. I don't know what one you're talking about.
That's why you deserve a raise too.
She got it.
So, for me, it's easier to have your initials afterward and get me the information, because I don't know what you want to pinpoint. And point out.
Even to speak to that, I think it's something, if we were sitting here and said, oh, you know, this is what we were talking about, well, there's nothing that would preclude Jennifer from sitting on her, I don't know, what is it, an iPad?
Okay.
And saying, okay, I'll send it out to everybody now, you know what I mean? Instead of just, you know, like, I mean, honestly, like, I don't need this on paper right now.
Right.
You know, it just,
I would agree that the minutes I don't need, but it's been often that we've discussed things in person with like the additional
So I think there might be those couple of things where occasionally
So-
something pops up at the last minute.
Can we get at least the front sheet?
We just share that.
Just
you know,
one page.
And then we don't have to.
Yeah.
It would just, print the agenda and the extra materials, but not the minutes.
He's
Can we do
saying
that?
This kind of stuff.
I can do that, I just need you to submit it to me. I can't, you know what I mean, like, I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know what you're talking about, I'm trying to do my best by getting you information. So if you give it to me, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
instead of printing it, why not just, you know, like, if you didn't have that ahead of time, I mean, honestly, there's not really much on here other than, like, basically save the date and where it is. You know, like, the cost is still kind of outstanding, so we can't proceed with it. There's nothing that, you know, we're talking about it now, like I said, why couldn't we just send it out now and say, oh, hey, we talked about this, we'll send it out in an email and circulate it that way. And then there's no waste. I mean, even though it's one sheet, it's minute, but still, it's like, it adds up over time.
Too, like you're saying, you know, the minutes, that's redundant. Last month, you didn't pass the minutes, so I had to put them in again. I would love nothing more to save paper.
Let's just try to keep them in e-files and
I
leave
try
it
to-
up to ourselves to deal with.
Right, and I try to send it in enough time that you know, in your time at home, can look through them, but then you come here and then it's like, well, nobody's read them. So, you know, that's why they're there.
Well, we
So
talked about that
I won't
last
include
month.
them.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay.
That's great.
Well, I just wanted to say that there's 3 meetings in August that we can go to. There's 2 Act 167 meetings, and there's 1 greenhouse gas inventory meeting. So I'll go to all of them, to find out what's going on with
Have
the
dates set already.
Huh?
You're saying they have dates set already?
Yeah,
What are the dates?
August for the Act 157 Global Stormwater Management Planning Phase 1. Workshop number 1, August 1st, 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the morning. And workshop number 2, August 15th, 8:30 to 10 in the morning. And then the revised greenhouse gas inventory workshop is August 20th.
And what time is that?
They didn't say.
Okay.
All right, well, I can get some more information on that.
You can just look it up. I mean, here, the way I got it was looking up the environmental committee meeting minutes. It's all on the website.
Okay, we have some updates and reports. Many of these things are gonna be relatively straightforward, I think. One item is this discussion on EAC membership. We will have to wait to the next meeting if we take action. The reason being, was it 20 days, I think? And so the letters went out at such a time that 20 days haven't elapsed yet. We're getting close.
Date of receipt, so that's what I'm tracking.
Yeah, so as soon as we know, basically, if action can be taken, that'll be a topic for next meeting. And if we do not hear back by the deadlines, please let me know, Carrie. I know I keep emailing you and asking. And then what we'll be able to do, as I understand it, is we can replace the members because the threshold has passed for the number of missed meetings. And so what will happen is, what we've done in the past is nominate individuals to be elevated from associate member to full member. I know that we've often taken into consideration time in service as associate members, but what this will allow us to do is to basically fill 2 empty chairs with voting members of the committee, alleviate the pressure for us to be able to function in the event that someone's on vacation, they have professional responsibilities, they have children, they have maybe a sick child, or their children are involved in some event, any number of reasons why one of us can't be here any given time. So that will be something for us to put on next month's agenda, assuming that we don't receive letters by the appropriate deadlines. They're coming close. And then the next item is the volunteer sign-up sheet for the Cooks Creek Watershed Association 50th anniversary. I would say communicate to Jennifer here tonight if you intend to participate in that.
I sent out the sign-up email.
What do you still need? Do you know?
No. I looked at it last night, but I didn't make a mention.
I'm on it now. It looks,
You wanna look at this, Chad?
there's a,
What do you need?
I'm like, first I was like,
What do you need left on
there,
that
there's
list?
space
Kind
from
of the
noon to
sign-up genius
2,
thing.
space from 2 to 4, and then parking cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the parking cars is from 9:30 to 11. So there are different slots available, yeah.
Okay.
I emailed that said I should be available. I didn't sign up yet, though. I know.
Do you know what time?
I don't, other than whenever you need me. I can come in earlier if you need, 9 in the morning or whatever it is. I did. I think it was the car parking in the morning or the directing, right? Is that all it's, yeah.
You're doing a booth.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
But I can come earlier.
oh, okay.
Same, I'm at Lower Saucon first, so I was gonna come like 1 to 4.
I think that's not what you said.
I know, that's why I'm telling you. Because they want me to come first.
Just come anyone. Make it all
I'll be
work.
there 1 to 4.
Okay.
I'll text you.
I can step on it.
Okay.
That's good, thank you.
Kathy, you're next on the agenda
I
with.
ask?
Oh, go ahead.
So I have these, but is there, the ability to get like the tire recycling, the whatever events that are coming in the fall printed to pass out?
On a flyer, or I don't know what you're looking for.
Any communication from the township that would want to, be presented or available to anyone? Because right now, I
Send
want
me an
this.
email of what you're looking for, and then I'll type it up or something.
We have this thing.
Yes, that thing.
I
Yeah.
I mean, I just, with the flyers that I gave you, I just made them because I thought,
Yeah, we talked about it last month, so that's
but you never
perfect.
gave me a number, so I didn't know, and I just,
I think we said 50 when we were in the meeting last month, so this works fine. This is all great, yeah.
Okay, Kathy, you have a tire recycling program date?
I do not. It's up to the group. I have a tire recycling company. I have approval from the Lower Saucon Township Council. I have approval from Hellertown Borough. Hellertown Borough has no, they don't care what day and also where, so I figured I'll just use our Lower Saucon Township. So the date is the last piece that we need, and it doesn't matter to me, and if I'm gonna run the show, then it's fine. It's up, you know, I didn't know if it's up to the group or up to me or whatever. Somebody suggested that we try to combine it with the electronics thing. Somebody suggested that. Somebody suggested leaving it by itself because it's a separate thing, because the electronics day gets busy. So I have no preference. It's a group.
Did the recycling company have
Blackout dates or
preferences or
anything?
limits?
No, no limits, no. And she didn't give me any, like, you can't, you know, you can't, these are blackout dates or something like that. So it's as far as I'm concerned, it's just an EAC decision, and then I'll make the rest happen.
So I
also
did
have
end up giving Chad a map. I gave you a map, I believe. Okay, so if you're thinking, if you're thinking of combining
The
it,
map this way?
if you can find a location and start with that, and then you can talk to Roger to see if that's something that is a possibility.
Oh, I see.
Put it off to the
Traffic
side.
comes in. Where, is that Friedensville Hall?
It gets
Is that
pretty, it's a little filled up sometimes.
Yeah,
And they have a couple
I
big
don't want-
trucks there that they're
Oh.
loading up. And I don't know if that would,
benefit,
Do it as a
yeah.
You mean for the electronics?
yeah. It might be a little tight.
Well, even people with their car space, I mean, like, I have a pickup truck, we have trucks, but if you have like a car and you gotta, you know what I mean, are you gonna have room, or, you know, even a regular like, I'd say do it, personally, I would say do it as a separate event.
Two separate, I would think, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, Kathy, you should dictate a time, because you're doing the legwork.
It's gonna be the fall at this point, that's all I really know, so I'm
Do we have a
looking.
calendar of all the other township events or anything else going on that we could reference easily? And fit it in between someplace? Because this is in September. This is at the end of September.
September 28th, you said,
Yeah.
Jennifer?
Yep, it's on the.
And then we had
Yeah,
another
okay.
event that was going on, I think, at the landfill.
That's October
That's
5th.
October 5th, right?
Yeah, which is also the Temple University Day. And I will also be in Sarasota Springs at a wedding that day.
Okay, so either this is August. Is there a way to advertise this and make it effective within a month? Or do we need more time to get it out?
I think that's pushing it.
That's more time.
Especially since I'm working with Hellertown.
Okay.
As a parent, October is like impossible. There's so many
terrible
things
month.
going on
I agree.
all the time, so I would
But then
suggest
that
maybe
makes us go to
November.
No,
If you
no,
correct it to September 21st. say,
I
is
was
that-
looking,
before,
I was
yeah.
sort of thinking September 14th or September 21st, those just happen to be Saturdays. But to your point, I didn't even think to look at Hellertown Borough's website of what they're, you know, like if they're doing anything. I didn't put that together.
So would it make sense to ask you, Kathy, to do that and then email all of us?
We can jump on the borough website now, can't we?
Yeah, but you're gonna be snooping around, I would imagine.
Are you gonna require any help from staff? That's why I was proposing the same date as the recycling, because we already have staff that will be here. And rather than pay overtime a second time, maybe combine it, so.
Can we work it into a service group project, maybe? And pitch it to anybody that would want to help in that capacity, like I don't know, Boy Scouts or something, I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind, or something like that, and see if there's maybe a group that would want to, is that permissible? Or do we need to have staff here for it?
I mean, if you're not requiring the building
They
to be
do,
open or
they
the
do.
garage,
The only thing I'm thinking about, I never did it before, is traffic,
Right,
but,
which is us.
I think traffic becomes a problem if we combine them.
Yes.
Because recycling recycling is gonna be a big thing. I don't know what the demand would be for tires.
I don't
you know?
either.
So-
It's the first go around.
Last year when I did the recycling thing,
Yeah,
which
I'm
was the
looking
first
for
time I've ever
stuff,
seen
too.
it, obviously, it wasn't too busy, the weather wasn't great. But there were still 6 cars deep at one point. And I can only imagine if people are showing up to do both, that they're gonna end up sitting in a line. And it might be a little tight back there for 2 different
Yeah,
events
they're
going on.
gonna get
Are you here with
frustrated.
tires or electric? We gotta split people up. And
That actually makes more work. If the tire people can handle much of it and only need a little bit of help,
I'm leaning that way. I mean, I don't see, I mean, I want it to be accessible, of course, but I just don't see, back-to-back cars. I hope not. Yeah, I guess I hope so, but I think we're gonna, let me do a little bit of snooping around to make sure I'm not, getting involved with a Hellertown Borough event. Let me talk to, her name is Kathy also, right? From Hellertown Borough? Everybody's
well,
name is
and you know,
Kathy.
if you combine the events, some people might have both items.
Right, but
know
I don't want anybody to get frustrated,
It
I'm
might-
sitting here
might
for
be
40
hard.
minutes and I can't get
Yeah.
through.
And they
Well-
both require payment though, so that could get complicated with, the collecting the payment.
Right,
If I was gonna put 4 tires in my car, I wouldn't have any room for my monitors.
so 2
Agreed.
different events.
So I keep leaning towards 2 different events.
yeah.
I think that's the way to go with it.
Yep.
I'm
Just
thinking
give us a date.
September 14th is what I'm sort of thinking.
Okay.
Let me, I'm thinking September 14th, like 9 to 2, maybe? And then I will confirm with the tire company and I will confirm with,
Shorten that even.
9 to 12.
I was gonna say 9 to 12, maybe 9 to 1, but I think 9 to 12.
That's, yeah, I don't think.
Advertise it that way and tell the tire company, we don't, it's a first time, you don't know. Have them maybe on standby to stay till 1 if needed, but
yeah.
I would say shorten it a little bit. I think 5 hours might be a little much, because then you have people that are gonna say, well, if they're open till 2, so they're kind of
I'll
like.
get here at 1:55.
Yeah, but meanwhile, they could have came earlier if they had some, yes.
I looked on the Hellertown website, they do not have anything on September 14th.
Wonderful. We're gonna go with September 14th, but I am gonna call Kathy. Yeah, I can remember her name. Just to make sure, and then I'll talk to the tire company, and then we'll make a flyer, and then we'll move it forward.
How does it work with township mailers? Like, because we have 3 events coming up, right? 3 that are like right at the same time. Is there a way to do like a postcard? Doesn't the township has a bulk mailing permit, correct? Can we get a postcard design with like, save the dates and maybe like those 3 things on it that?
In the plastic bags.
That's, I mean,
Not yet.
Well,
I would say
that's
like,
a newsletter article.
yeah, that's more of an article. I think just something, you know what I mean? Like, just to get awareness, you know what I mean? So if it's people that aren't on social media.
I
If
agree.
you
Just
have
and-
multiple events, it's worthwhile to have.
Well, and they're right there, and I would keep, even just do the small ones, I mean, they're not, like, I get them printed at work, I think I get the big ones, they're 38 cents a piece, double-sided, and they're thick and nice.
When does it's not the council, the township newsletter, when does that go out? Isn't
There
there?
should be a fall one, I think.
It's
We're
quarterly?
talking about a fall one, so.
Yeah, it's gonna be like too
Start
late.
working
Too
on
late,
it.
it's gonna be too late, okay,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, it would be too late.
All right, sounds
Even like a
good.
little postcard, people can get it now and just tack it on their
Could
fridge.
we do that if it's gonna be too late to get onto a newsletter, which wouldn't be until the fall? Can we get cards sent out?
I would say, I mean, that's something that costs money, so that's something that would have to go before council.
So then we have to put it on
Well, is that something we can raise as a
But I would
motion then,
suggest
to
putting it
request
in-
funding for
Yeah,
a
Well,
EAC
that's one of
mailer?
those tricky things. Here again, Kathy was saying, oh, we can't do business and raise motions that aren't on the agenda. I guess we're talking about these
Well,
events, so that's on the
These programs
agenda.
are on the agenda, so
Yeah.
yes, we can make a
Okay.
motion.
So someone want to move that we request funding from council to put these events
Why
all
don't we,
together?
before we just request funding, why don't we call and get pricing? So we can present to them and say, we'd like to send a postcard of.
Wait, you're gonna bump it a week, you're gonna bump it 2 weeks if you do that.
Right, because of the delay.
I think we should at least ask for funding.
Then you won't be on the council agenda until the end of August.
Right,
Right.
do you know roughly, do you have any idea roughly how much, from the township a postcard costs? Or is there somebody in the township that would know something like that?
I don't know what the going rate is with the post office right now. A letter is 63 cents that we send out.
They just went up, regular stamps, if that's what you're talking
We get
about.
a little bit of a discount, but I don't know.
And
what the
that's a
increase.
letter, so, but still.
Well, if
And
you do
then-
a 4x6 postcard, that's cheaper
Right.
postage.
That's what I'm getting at.
Ma'am.
And then how many,
And then you're talking about printing it too, so, you know.
and how many residents, when you make those, like the
The
township newsletter,
How many people that
how many
goes?
people get it? About?
Trying to think of our list. I don't do the newsletters anymore. Goes out to, I wanna say like 10,000 people, 10,000
Yeah, that's what I
homes.
figured.
No, there's only 11,000 residents.
I don't know you know,
Yeah,
apartments
it's gonna
and
be,
everything else, I don't know.
Okay, so let's say it's half.
I was just gonna say, let's say it's
5,000
5,000
at 40 cents
times
a
40
piece.
cents, we're thinking the same
Yeah.
way. That's still, how much is that? $2,200?
2,000.
Is it 2,000, 5,000
We were doing 4,000,
times
or
point?
10,000.
2,000.
$4,000,
Yeah, you're
But half
right.
of that.
right?
Calculated.
So, I don't know if that's something that
2,000.
can be requested.
Or could you calibrate us a little bit?
We can
Say
request
we
anything.
requested
What are you gonna
4,000.
say?
You better
I mean, we're
ask
sitting on a
for
surplus anyway,
plenty
might as well at
enough
least ask.
to
Well-
cover. I mean, if we
Not
say
enough.
2,500 and it costs 1,500, great. If you say
Yeah,
1,000
Is
and
there
it costs
any
2,000, that's not good.
Has there been a recent postcard mailing done that we could
I don't know.
look against and say for something of the similar size of that? I don't know if I've gotten it.
Yeah, I don't.
No, it's the same reason why we can't have a Facebook page and other
But you-
EACs can.
Well, it would be,
I mean,
yeah, that would be.
But
But
at
you
some
know,
point, you gotta
that'd
say,
be
we
one
didn't
way
do
to
it
do
before,
it.
we're gonna try it now.
Maybe you're looking at it the
There
wrong
are-
way.
We are posting things online. You are on your Facebook page posting the events,
Yeah.
so.
Maybe we're looking at a missed opportunity though, too. You know, if you're gonna do it, you know, save the dates, which is fine, but then you talk a little bit about us and what we're trying to do, like, you kinda use it as a jump start of maybe getting more people interested in what the township's doing, like, use it as a little
You're
advertiser,
advocating for the card.
the little postcard,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think that's like a kind of a springboard. You know, I think people that aren't thinking so much like EAC wise, but they see it and they're like, oh, I got tires. It's an opportunity then when they come to bring their stuff, you know, maybe we hand them like our own version of a newsletter with, hey, what are our current happenings, you know what I mean? And
Something.
schedule upcoming meetings.
Use it as a,
So
Yeah.
this
Right, a
card should have
segue.
the date and that there are fees involved.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
tires and
should.
for
electronics, and then there was something else.
Yeah, that's what I mean, like
The
the handouts when
landfill.
they come for those things.
The
The
landfill,
landfill cleanup date.
oh, the landfill,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was the
Because that
third time.
didn't get too well published.
Yeah, yeah.
You said it has not been published.
No, it wasn't well published, spring one. It wasn't
So why
able to
don't
get
we
much-
then make a motion?
All our dates.
I'll move that we request
Sorry.
funds for postcards to announce the landfill cleanup date, the
Electronics.
clean earth recycling of electronics and the tire recycling.
All together.
And indicate that they're all on one card, and indicate that there are fees associated with these. And I don't know what we should request from council. I mean, on the one hand,
Say up to 2,500, we should be able
yeah,
to do something for less than that.
so let's say up to $2,500 at cost. So I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so there we have it. That brings us next to Little Litter Program, Little Art Program. Jennifer?
I'm just gonna put,
Skipped over D.
I'm gonna put that on hold.
Okay. we'll put that on hold. Adopt the road cleanup, we're probably gonna wait more till like August to talk about establishing a date, right, Kathy?
Yeah,
It's too soon to,
yes,
to worry about that. And then are there other future EAC projects anyone wants to bring up? at the moment?
Unfortunately, yes, but this is a quickie. So it's a question. So if you recall, we all had the spreadsheets with what we were interested in and the different topics that we would like to do. And one of the ones I was looking at was legislation. And I found out a lot of information. But what do you do with that information? And how do you get that information out, right? So I had a couple thoughts. My biggest thought, though, was, this is the law. Like, if you change the law so you don't have, so you have the plastic bottle return for 5 cents, or the styrofoam, like those kind of things. So I was thinking about the EAC network conference and letting Lower Saucon Township participate in the EAC network conference, so that, it goes to us, but then it also goes to other EACs. That was my thought. And then I was gonna, if people thought it was a good idea, I was gonna try, I don't know if I'm gonna be successful, but I was gonna try and get either Bob Freeman or Lisa Biscola or Susan Wild or somebody to actually do it. How do you get the bill up to get voted on? How do you, contact your, like those kind of things? What is the bill? What the bill number is? Like that kind of stuff, like a 20-minute, this is what you do if you wanna try and get these bills passed. But I didn't know what everybody else thought. So, I mean, I can sit here and tell you, House Bill 5326 is, but then what happens to that information, So that's kind of where I was going with that. It's a question.
We usually, Susan Wild and Bob Friedman have office hours at Hellertown. I've been there and spoke to both of them. So we could do that. We could approach them that way.
Plus, it's an opportunity, I would think, for them, I would assume, it's an EAC network, so they're gonna be their constituents as well, but I don't, but it's a thought of what do you do with the information that you collected, and how do you get the most bang for your buck kind of thing.
Well, I think there'll be a lot of that going on at the LBC. Planning commission. They'll be coming up with ideas and then trying to get the government to come up with some money for them. And there might have to be some new laws passed, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe we'll learn how it's done then. I mean, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, right, like, it took me forever to figure out how to do it, how to find the bill, where is the bill in the House, what happens to the bill, and when do you vote on the bill? So to try and communicate that is not easy.
Who do you want to communicate to?
Well, you have to get people to vote when that bill comes up. That's the problem.
You gotta get the legislators
To
to vote.
vote, right. So you have to communicate to your legislator, so your legislator, when the bill comes up.
For voting.
For voting.
But then it goes around and around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's an answer here. It's a thought.
But
it's a.
From my perusing of the government websites for one reason or another, I've come across, sometimes that they give you references and you wind up looking at one of these bills. It could take you a whole
4 days.
4 days to read it.
If your eyes last that long.
Right.
So, I don't know.
It's a thought.
That's what our legislators are for. They're supposed to, they get money to do that for us, right? So their offices,
in theory.
go to their offices and tell them what you want done, and maybe then they'll do it for you. I mean, like there's one office in Easton.
These things usually get publicized by advocacy groups, whenever there's a bill that some advocacy group is concerned about, they publicize it to their constituents.
You see them all the time,
That's
right.
what happens.
Right.
The We Conserve was just emailed me a few times to reach out.
Yeah.
To your local legislator.
Yeah.
Right.
They had just another House bill that they were promoting.
Right.
Yeah, I get emails like that too for different outlets.
I mean, if I could just say, I think we've got a lot on our plate, and
and I think that's very important, but if we're focusing on the plastic bag, then you're focusing on that legislation, and maybe we take a baby step versus try to
A big step.
take that big step and just look at some of these key projects we want to take on, and then see how that legislation would play, but, you know.
And the plastic bags won't be a baby step. I
No.
think it's gonna be a big lift.
It will, but I think it's a little more manageable. When I hear what you went through, I'm like, you know, we're not a political action group, we're
Right.
more.
Right.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
and I understand, you know, because you have to know that, because I had affected plastic bags a few years, couldn't go any further because the state had controlled that, so it's just.
It's a lot.
It is, so, and then like the We Connect PA, you know, brings up some stuff, so.
Well, the companies that provide the plastic bags, if they could provide the paper bags with their logo on, be an advertisement for them, and they could win that way. It wouldn't be that much of a cost to them because they'd be advertising their store or their product.
You can incentivize it to the stores too,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, we
Okay,
can
let's
see what.
get to the minutes.
Can I go back real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry, we skipped over this one section. For the volunteer sign up for the electronics event, we think we need at least 2 people, minimum. If anybody wants to put their name down, or if you prefer to communicate digitally and not with paper, you can email me too.
I'm gonna send you a little note across the table,
And
Chad.
what are the hours?
Sorry. 8:30 to 10:30, and then 10:30 to 12:30. Kind of splitting it up a little bit. So maybe about 4 people, if we could.
Probably can, let me check.
I think we had one out on the road, right? How did we have this? Is it on the map here for where we have people stand?
Yeah, neither.
We don't have the cards, but.
I think we had somebody out on Old Philadelphia Pike, and then there was one in here to direct in, and then they take over,
Do
basically.
you have
So
somebody at the other end though to tell them, don't
to
come in
get
this
out,
way?
yeah, to go out this way.
I know, but yet I had somebody like out of the road to.
Oh, to close it
Some
off so
people
that
let
they
it
wouldn't
come
come
in.
in. So probably three per section, I mean, at the minimum. But if we could only get 2, we'll manage. But I'll pass this around. If anybody
Let's
wants
bring
to
it
look
back
at
up again too, so.
Well, obviously, yeah.
I'm
The other
pretty
thing we could
sure.
do too is if we have a contact at the high school, I think these students still have to do service projects.
Well, like you said, that would be a great way to
I mean,
do
just
it.
incorporating people. And it might be a good way too, like if it's like I said, the scout group is the first thing that comes to mind, not that we have to use them, but if the Boy Scouts are involved, maybe then the parents are on, or there, you know.
National Honor Society
It
has
just kinda
10
gets-
hours of community
Yeah,
service that they
it
require.
gets legs from there. Well, even the students that are on the junior council members, maybe they, through their school, like I know at Bethlehem Catholic, we had certain hours of volunteer we had to do every year. I'm from Meridian Academy, has the same kind of program, but perhaps.
Well, we'll have new kids by then, because right now we don't
Yeah.
have a kid.
Or
I
Eagle,
just mean like in general, like if,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, if there's new or,
like Eagle Scouts.
that's what I mean, like it was just an idea, just a way to not carry a burden if there's other things
Is
going
there
on
any
and.
connection that we have with the school district that we could reach out to the high school and ask them if there's
I don't know
any-
what the connection is. I mean, usually we've
mean,
we've relied
should I
on our
just do it?
student representatives, but he's not here today.
Could,
Oh, he's done. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, once
so
the
we don't-
school season ends,
Oh, okay,
they're
okay.
done. Yeah.
can you go to a school board meeting? Is that where you would bring something like that up?
I'm willing to,
I could, unless there's a volunteer coordinator at the high school, maybe it would like in the counseling group that might have.
as a teacher, I know enough teachers at Saucon that I can reach out and inquire as well.
Okay.
So
if you could
I'll
do
reach
that,
out to
Dean, then
them, I'll reach out to,
let Chad know.
teachers are checked out right now, so I think
Right.
maybe August might be the better
Well,
time.
this will be in
Yeah.
September, so
Yeah.
after school goes back for a month, we'll have some.
I'll
time.
reach out to the few that I know and see where it goes.
But
Okay.
How about
maybe
Eagle Scouts?
2 or 3 students, just for some extra hands would be nice.
Eagle Scouts might be a source.
Cheyenne?
Who would we also, so let's say, because I feel like September's gonna be here before we blink, and we only have that meeting coming up in August beforehand. Who would be in charge of, let's say we wanted to have like handouts at the events, you know, like a handout, and maybe we can even do the same one, but let's say we wanted to have like a flyer of what kind of projects are we working on, you know, know, like I said, maybe like a mini newsletter for just EAC to kind of hand out as people come in.
As they pay.
Well, just like, as they come, you know what I mean, like, as they come in, might as well use the opportunity to say, here's the stuff that we have going on. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
But at what event then are you?
Like, hand them out at all three of the events. So like, as the car comes in, what's our first one? It's gonna be the electronics. Or no, let's say the tire recycling.
The tire.
So let's say somebody comes in to drop their tires.
If we send the cards out, I think we're covered, right?
No, I was thinking,
More of a
the
newsletter.
postcard is more
Just
of
like
like
a
a
print.
save the date, like here's the events. And then when they come, that's where we can have like, what events are we working on? You know, and it can be, now, what items are we addressing? And that can be where we discuss like a small blurb about the plastic bags, a small blurb about the climate action. So people can get a little bit more affiliated with what EAC is actually doing.
Right.
You know, like I said, it's difficult. It's one thing if that's your interest and you go and seek it out. But if you're not and your interest is getting rid of old electronics or tires, but then you see it and you're like, hey, that's a good idea that I align with. We might as well use the opportunity, in my opinion, while we have them here and give them the information.
So what we should do then is compile our list of what we have coming and deal with this at the August meeting and say, okay.
Well, that's
here
what
are
I was
the
hoping we could have by the August meeting, maybe have an email thread of like what kind of things we'd like to have on there. I mean, keep it short and concise, but just give people a snapshot of like what different things we're working on, like litter the letter, the bags, the, I don't know, whatever else, whatever we have going, the legislation, you know what I mean? Like, kind of let people know what EAC does, because it's something that I don't think is
For the
well
interest of
enough
the time that we
publicized.
have, one mailer that is the save the date with the 3 items, and then a short blurb of priorities or mission statement objectives on the backside
Of the
with the
mailer.
address. And then we can hand those out at the events as well, because it's still a save the date for the future things. Maybe
Yeah.
the person coming for the tire doesn't know that it's the electronics event yet or something.
Yeah.
So we could maybe just
Thinking
get
about
away
like
with using the same.
space on the card, you know what I mean? So it doesn't become, like I get when I see something that's like too wordy, I don't read it. You know what I mean? So that was the only reason why I was thinking like keep that card short and sweet.
Neat newsletter article for fall.
Yeah.
Maybe that's.
Okay, so let's
Do you
pull
wanna
that
put
together
down
and
as maybe
put
an
that,
item to draft a mission statement or some a newsletter article for the upcoming news?
Yeah,
Could
yeah.
we put that in?
That
to
would be
the
great, because
agenda?
that way we don't have to,
so we can put that on the
Have
August
more
agenda,
printing.
pull this together. Okay, let's get to the minutes, because there's a lot. Should I just start in on things and just, anyone chime in? So
Where are you gonna start, what minutes?
May 14th. So I have on page 1, line 38, towards the end, it says, comma, she said wanted to just, so I think it should say, she said she wanted to just take 1 minute. So insert she. Then that would jump us to, let's see, line 45, how to manage them, how to get rid of them. She said, let me think what I have here. Jesus, I can't even read. Oh, to get rid of, instead of the word them, how to get rid of knotweed is what she was alluding to. I think that's more accurate. Knotweed. Then on page 2, line 7, the first word roses, I would just take the plural out, where the multiflora rose. Then line 44, to share a comprehensive plan instead of comment. So replace comment with plan.
Comment with.
Plan.
Replace,
surrounding
yeah,
townships
to share a comprehensive plan
plan.
like this. And then 46, I'd say just strike the last 3 letters or words, any negative from, because it's redundant. Then we go to page 3. I'll just go through mine and then we can fill in the blanks if people have other things. Page 3, line 1, it should read, he didn't think it was in our purview. Scratch the period, and then just scratch, he said, on the other hand, So it would say, it would read otherwise, he didn't think it was in our purview to raise issues with their preservation of any parcels, blah, blah, blah. Line 12, the word into about 3/4 through should just say in, and just tell them in the spirit of. Line 19 on that same page, scratch the words on the, because it says put it on the. So scratch one of the on those. Line 25, this just reads cleaner if we take, on line 25, the word that starts that line should read that a number of years ago. So insert and with all due respect, Laura Ray, we can just scratch your name because I just mentioned Alan and yourself and it doesn't read clean. So if we take that out, and then line 26, Lower Saucon Township, I think we have a comma there we don't need. And then the very end of that line, scratch for the, because it's redundant, it says for the. And then, so for this, on line 27, for the Springfield Township, I would just scratch Springtown and just write Springfield Township source. And then that same line, scratch at the end, their results, their model results. It reads cleaner to say water supply, and they modeled groundwater flow, period. And therefore in line 28, add the period after flow and remove and their model results. It's not necessary. Then we have a couple of spellings. So on line 30, same page, groundwater flow basically south of the water divide. Scratch the word service. And then Colbert Hill should be Colberg Hill, Kolberg. And then likewise in the very next line, 31 should once again be Kolberg, Colberg Hill. And then line 34, the word nice should be spelled not nice like it's nice, but rather the rock gneiss, Gneiss. And then scratch amount of, so it would read nice spelled Gneiss, a metamorphic rock. So it says amount of morphic rock, it should say simply a metamorphic rock. Line 38 should be a comma after the word important at the very end of that sentence. Line 40, the word bicarbonate should actually be the word by, B-Y, and then the word carbonate. And then line 44, it says in this area, we could scratch an in this. Line 46, a comma at the very end. So all of the comma, whether you call them hills or mountains. So that comma is necessary. Then line 49, once again with topographic features, the word folk should be actually spelled F-O-C-H-T. Folked Hill, F-O-C-H-T, not folk.
That's where I live. That's my house.
Line 50, porosity should be followed by a comma, not a period. And then the word they should be lowercase, so it's one sentence. Then line 51, scratch significant groundwater recharge. Line 55, Scott was on, should read their EAC. Back to page 4, line 24, Colberg, again instead of Colberg. K-O-L-B-E-R-G.
Line 24.
Line 24 on page 4. Then we go to page 5.
Search off for Colbert.
Say again?
She can do a search off for
Yeah,
Colbert
yeah.
and just do a change off.
Page 5, page 5, line 52. Drew said yes, and then just scratch the words now and they, theirs, doing, though. So it says Drew said yes with respect to what the study did. they're getting fewer and far between. On page 6, line 32, scratch the comma after source water protection plan. Source water is a phrase. Then line 41, after the word he said he didn't, insert the word think. He said he didn't think it was. Line 43, comma after the word study in the middle of the line. And then line 55, where it says inaudible, I would replace inaudible with the words land that. Page 7, line 3, about 5 words in, it says supplies. I would just change that word to supply. Turn the plural into just supply with a Y. Line 12, page 7, the first word recharged, just write recharge, scratch the D. And then at the end of that line, scratch the word the, so it just reads so nutrient impact. Oh, I'm sorry, I take that back. It should read so there is nutrient impact instead of the word the.
What line is that?
That line is
12.
line 12,
The very last at the end.
very end. It say so there is nutrient impact. Page 8, line 45, there again, a redundancy. It says, and so those, comma, those, should just say, so those. Uh-oh, 2 whole pages, 3 whole pages, we're on a roll. At least I'm not finding things. That was it for me on March 19th, May 14th. Did anybody else have May 14th things?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead, Alan.
But I'm gonna start all over because, I'll start over in the things that are redundant to the show. You are already mentioned, right?
Yeah, I hope.
So we'll start on page, okay, I wasn't gonna comment on things that other people said, but since you did, I might as well put in here what I got. Cause I tried to make the corrections as I read them, so that I could read them. Okay. Page 3, yeah, I better start at page 1, I guess. Page 2. Page 2. All right, page 2, line 41. It says, we feel an urge to, period. One being the Upper Saucon Township. So just put a period in there. Okay, that's that one. And page.
Put a period after what?
Page 2, line 41. It says, we feel an urge to, period. And then it should begin, one being Upper Saucon Township, blah, blah, blah. That's what I think anyway. So, see, page 3, line 14, no, line 11. Starting on 10, at the end, it says, he asked if they could get, and then it repeats itself. So cross out could get. All right, line 26 on page 3. I think that one, Drew caught that one. It says groundwater flow in Lower Saucon Township. Period. Spot, Stevens, and McCoy did similar testing for the cross out for the Springtown Township, Springtown source.
Yeah, Drew corrected that.
Yeah, okay. Okay, he said that his student modeled the groundwater flow. Basically, it says south. I think it should say north. North of the water divide formed by Colbert Hill. Because south would be down towards Springtown. North is
Right,
here.
yeah, so north is, that would be sensible, yes. So change south to north.
All right, we got that one. Okay, I think maybe you got this one. Line 38, at the end of line 38, it says porosity, that's important, period. And then in the carbonate rocks. Start like a new sentence there. Did you get that one? Okay. Line 46. So all of the uplands, I put that word in, uplands, whether you call them hills or mountains in Lower Saucon Township. Agree with that?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, then on the 48 where it says Lehigh, I put in university.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay. And then down on 54, it says Amy as he understands. This was Douglas Scott was talking. Amy, as he understands, was on the water board. I put in there Springtown Water Authority, just to let people know what the water board was.
Yep.
So cross out water board, put in Springtown Water Authority. And then it says Scott was on the EAC, and you should cross out EAC and put in Springfield Township EAC.
That last one, what line was that?
55. It says Scott was on the EAC. Well, cross out EAC and then put in Springfield Township EAC. Okay. See page 4. There's page 4. Okay. And then I have on page 4, line 9, it says, he said that he understood that you were at a figure deficit. And I think what should have been said there was a graphic drawing deficit. So he wasn't looking for numbers. He was looking for
Right, the figures in
graphic
the report.
drawings.
Yeah, I saw that too. That's a
Did you
good
get that one?
catch. No, I didn't
I didn't know
change
what
it.
to say there.
That's a
I had
good
question.
catch.
Okay. What else we got here? Line number 12 on page 4. It says, towards the end of it, it says, black line, that is the outline of the Cooks Creek watershed, and then cross out association. In the area of Springtown. Because that's what he's talking about. He's talking about the Cooks Creek watershed, not the Cooks Creek Watershed Association. Okay. He pointed out Springtown. On line 14, that's a typo. Okay, on line 19, no, line 18. line 19. At the end, it says, he pointed out the 2 springs that were there and a water tank. Okay, now the reason I marked that is because, is there really 2 springs? As far as I know, there's only 1. So I don't know what to do about that. That's a question I guess we should ask them next time we see them. Okay, 25. Line 25 on page 4. It says, pointed to the Whole Ridge Tower. I don't know what that means. What do you think, Drew? He says,
Yeah,
Colbert Hill was mapped there and pointed to the Whole Ridge Tower. Maybe you should cross
The Whole
tower
Ridge
out.
top?
Tower. He says,
Yeah, the whole ridge top, maybe.
all right, put the top in there.
I think that'll do it. Because, yeah, he was pointing at the map, so that's,
Okay.
Was that a water tower?
is there a tower there?
Was it a water tower?
Is there a water tower there, Alan?
Yeah.
There's a water tower, but that's further down the hill, and I don't think they were talking about that.
They weren't.
They were talking about Colbert Hill. Okay, then on that same line, 25, after it says Cheyenne arrived, it says, this is cold, which is the recharge, a recharge area. So I don't know what that means either. You see that, Drew?
Yeah, I'm looking at that. Maybe he said this is Colbert,
That's what I was gonna say.
which is the recharge area.
Oh, Colbert Hill should go in there. Cross out cold and put in Colbert Hill.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what to do, I think, as well, Carol, is then you say, this is Colbert Hill, which is the recharge area, rather than which is the recharge, a recharge area. Just call it the recharge area. I think that reads more clean and is accurate.
Okay. All right, what else did I find here? Line 41, it says, towards the end, it says, if you've got things going on where water is being transported to the surface and then might infiltrate it in the immediate area, that's zone 2. So he's talking about pollution, I guess.
Yeah, and how they,
It might get
how they
infiltrated.
categorize the different zones, so I thought that was okay.
All right, okay. Drew said, last line, maybe you got this one. Line 55, right in the beginning, it says, but that's training. And I think they meant that's draining.
Oh, yeah, I had that, I didn't see anything about it, but I had that, but that's draining the Polk Valley.
Yeah,
Yeah, training should be draining.
okay. And then later on in that sentence, Amy said that everyone outside of the village is on wells. That's important.
Makes sense.
Then it is only, and then the first line on the next page, page 5 says, it is only the village of Springtown, period. There we only have 236 metered users. So, you know,
There instead of theirs.
say there instead of theirs. Or maybe you could say theirs. That means there are, right? There are, no. No, you want to cross out there are and put in there. There we only have. Okay, and at the end it says the water, and then I think you should put in there, the water authority was created back at the end of 1800. Okay, that's because the water here in town had been contaminated by septic. Okay, so I think this is line 4. I think it should say, at the end of line 3, it says, and is now currently the Springtown Water Authority, period. And then a new sentence should say, so everyone outside of this village is on wells also. All right, line 7. Let's go for no mistakes there.
Yeah, scratch that 111, right? It should just say, we drew over 11 million gallons. Is that what you're getting at on line 7? For the calendar?
Year we drew.
Oh, we have 2 forthers in that line too, notice that? Line 7, the fiscal, we should scratch one of the forthers.
Yeah, I had that, okay.
And then I'd say, for the calendar year, we drew over 11 million gallons.
Yeah, cross out the 111.
Yeah.
Okay. Was what we were, and then the same page, line 9, it says, of our water, drinking water has come from these springs. No, I don't think she meant streams, she meant springs.
Yeah, you're right.
She said streams.
From these springs. That's gotta be right.
Okay. 14. I'm gonna leave that one go. All right, down here on line number 46 of page 5, it says, first word is township, then it says, and then Lorna suggested. It was probably Laura.
No, it's Lorna.
But they were talking about somebody else.
Yeah, Lorna is her name.
Who's Lorna?
She is part of the council of Springtown. Yes, that's her name.
Well, later on, this. Oh, I know where it is. It's way in the beginning. Way in the beginning when Scott first started talking. Okay, here's a page 1. Anyway, it says there that the lady from the council's name was not Lorna, it was something else. Because he says there that she's not here, and it wasn't Lorna, it was something else.
It's her name, I can guarantee you. I
Wish I
know
could find
firsthand.
that.
It doesn't matter. Can we make a motion to maybe have this emailed, the corrections to you? I hate to say this, but I have to go. It's getting late. It's been a long.
If there are any more corrections to May 14th, Alan, if you would be so kind to email me.
How am I gonna email them to you? Just copy this and send it to you?
Or you could just
I'm not gonna write all that stuff up.
I've done it that way already, and I've had minutes with a lot of stuff.
Where was I? What page was I on?
Well, going towards what you were saying about not printing it out, digital, you actually review and annotate these files.
Redline copy.
Professional PDF.
Redline copy.
Adobe.
The reader, the free reader, doesn't let you annotate at all.
I don't think you can do anything. New format, prepare new format.
There's not too many more. We get over that one. Okay, page 6. He said the modeling might not need to be redone. On line 2, at the end, the modeling might not need to be done. And on line 6, Board of Supervisors to the Springfield Township EAC. I guess you can get this off of the record. Line 10, searching for information at this point, we are not asking to make any decisions. Okay, there's another thing here where it says, okay, line 49, at the end of line 48, it says, over on the eastern side of the township. Instead of, it should say township instead of town. And on the bottom 55, it says, I think Drew corrected that one.
You changed inaudible to land that.
Yeah. Drew corrected that one. Okay, on page 719, is of contamination, what qualifies as a source of contamination? Are we agreeing, my correction is, are we agreeing that a house with, okay, that's it. Instead of where are, and instead of which what. Chad asked, what is the implication for that? No, wait. No, wait, or it could be, that's not a big deal, let's forget about that. No big deal. There's another big deal on the other minutes. Here her name is. Her name is Marina Wood. Scott said he thinks that if Marina Wood had been here, she might have made that, that's her name, Marina Wood. Sounds like Laura almost. Unless there was somebody here named Lorna.
Wait, Jennifer knows who Lorna is, so that's a moot
Yeah,
point.
there is a person. What page are you on, Alan?
Oh, what page am I on?
Mars.
Page 8, line 9. Scott said he thinks that if Lorna had been here, this is what the minutes say. I think it should be Marna Wood. I think that's her name. All right.
Well, we don't know.
Just put it in the minutes, see who's right.
If the minutes just say Lorna, he must have only said Lorna.
All right. You win. The committee wins. I don't know where I got that, but I know I got that somewhere.
You can always watch the recorded meeting at some point and confirm whatever this woman's name is.
Okay, that's the end of those minutes. That's the end of the Springtown Water Source Committee activities.
That next set of minutes, I didn't find anything. So I don't know if anybody else had any errors on that next set of minutes, but I didn't.
I did.
How many did you have? Was there a lot?
I think I got 5 or 6.
Okay, fire away. But that's not something you can just hand over to Carol from your notes?
She can photocopy it.
I have one for the May minutes. It's very simple.
May?
May, yes. That nobody hit. So it's page 11, line 14. Not in the east area, should be easement area, not east.
It should be what?
Easement.
Oh, easement, I'm sorry.
But on the other ones.
Okay.
So is this new software doing this now? That's what I thought.
It should be pretty accurate.
It's kind of cool. The software, well, it identifies at the beginning of
They're
each
using
figure.
Chat AI.
So what do we have there, Alan? Do you have notes to?
Yeah, wait a second, I'm getting there. Okay, this is the one, this is the thing, the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. I think on
That's it.
Just some additional information.
page 12 of the June 11th meeting minutes, in line 40, it says Alan Johnson. I didn't say that. I think Chad said that. Chad will never remember, I guess, but anyway, take my name off of that. I don't want my name there.
Just highlight it as unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah, just.
That's our
just
default.
scratch it.
All right, you can take my name off of there?
I'll do it, I'll take it.
So, okay, so put Chad's name in there. I think he said that.
Anything you guys don't want to say, I'll say for you. Don't worry about it.
That's usually me.
Okay,
Okay, so where are we?
line
Alan?
40, we're getting there. Okay, start here, blah, blah, blah. Line 40, okay, page 21. I mean, not 21, yeah, page 21, line 41. Alan Johnson. It should be, do you feel there's a danger of pollution reaching the Black River? Okay, that's not a big one.
What did it say?
It said, are you? Are you?
So let's just read, do you feel?
Yeah. Okay, and then line 11, page 22. Oh, it's Alan Johnson again. I only corrected.
That's damn Alan.
I only corrected what I said. I didn't worry about anybody else. So it said Alan Johnson, cross out and also, and put in so. So they can't really guarantee, and then put in not having any kind of a massive failure. And then, like if something goes wrong, cross out they if, and so that it just says like if something goes wrong and they have a spill. Okay, the rest of that's okay. And then cross out.
It picks up a lot of so's, so just beware.
You might, probably should just scratch on line 13, one of the thens.
You have to understand the software picks up every word. So guys,
And then it says
we're gonna get a lot of that because
whether
it dictates.
It's in training is what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah,
Mine
so,
the and the ums and the yes and
Oh, that's a read bedrock there.
Hey, Carol, are you using speech-to-text software? Oh, I can see why. Oh, yeah, okay, I
So
get it.
Alan, probably that last on 13 should read whether we reach the bedrock there.
Wait a second, where are you? Page 22, 13?
Yeah.
Okay, it says, I don't know, I got a different 13. Are you on 22?
I'm on page 22 of 28.
set a block bedrock.
13 should say, I'm sure it should say reach the bedrock there.
Thanks to Drew, I have a whole page of Word to put it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I thought it said, I thought I said, could reach the Black River.
Ah. Okay, put the Black River in then.
Where they release a lot of gasoline, then the geology is such that the pollution could reach the Black River. I'm asking a question.
Right.
Question mark.
I put a question mark.
All right.
You updated in your software then?
I will do the minutes, not the software. But this I'll do the minutes. No, but yes, I update the software with terms.
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
That's what I was saying. So
And
that
it
learns.
will recognize each voice after so often.
Right, yeah.
Okay, we got not done yet. Alan Johnson spoke again. Page 28, line 4. Alan Johnson. How important, this is a question I ask, how important is, this is what it says. It says, all important minutes of our discussion with Springtown EAC and Water Association.
What page was that again?
Line 4, right?
Page 28, line 4. And what it should say is how important is it that minutes of our discussion with Springtown EAC and Water Association be accurate, really accurate? That's the question I ask. And that's why we're going through all this. Somebody thought it was important. Okay.
So that's 28 of 28. Whew. All right, I think someone might be interested in making a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Are we gonna like approve minutes with?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll approve the minutes as corrected.
Yes.
All right.
So let me show you.
Okay, so then the next, all in favor? Aye.
And what did I say?
Laura, no, that's the lady.
And then the motion to adjourn was Jennifer,
Yes,
and then who seconded?
I'll second that.
What were those, who were those people?
this is Springfield Township.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, have a good night, everybody. Thank you for your diligence
Good night, everybody.
and patience.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I will be here, so it should be somewhat easier for us to keep a line.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I hope to see you all on Saturday. It's kid friendly, a lot of good activities. So
Okay, now see the open
hope it
space
doesn't rain,
people
we
tomorrow.
don't die of heat exhaustion, just bring lots of water.
I do plan on coming down.